Hello and welcome to the Weekly Stuff Podcast with Jonathan Lack.
And Sean Chapman.
We are here to talk about stuff this week on the show. It is a movie catch-up spectacular. We're going to review John Wick Chapter 3, Parabellum. Yeah, it's good.
Very good.
We're going to review Detective Pikachu. It was fine.
Yes, it was fine. That's a movie.
Best video game live-action movie ever. Not a high bar.
Yeah, I think at least of all the ones I've seen, I can't claim to have seen every live-action video game movie adaptation, but of the ones I've seen, this would be my favorite.
And Aladdin, which I saw because I'm an idiot. You didn't see.
No. I would much rather just spend like the 80 minutes watching the original Aladdin again than go see this Aladdin.
Well, because this Aladdin is over 2 hours long.
Yeah, when I saw that in particular, I was like, how the fuck did you make a 2 hour long Aladdin? Like, Aladdin's plot is already very thin and basic for what it is for an animated movie. Like, stretching that out to 2 hours seems impossible.
It was. I will just say I went to it assuming it would kind of be like funny bad and it would be a good podcast story, because we like to do that for on occasion.
Yeah.
No, it's just sad bad. It's like I got to a certain point in the movie and I felt bad for every person on screen. I felt bad for the director. I felt bad for the people building the sets because they did a really good job, but there's nothing going on those sets that's interesting. And I'm just like, you guys were all given a suicide mission? You did your suicide mission well, I guess, but as expected, you died at the end, and nothing really came of it. So
yeah, well, such is the fate of all who make live-action remakes of Disney animated films.
So far. All right. Let's see. We've also got the Game of Thrones series finale to talk about, and I guess the pilot, because you've started watching.
Yep, I'm like halfway through season 1, so...
It's still good.
Yeah. I like Game of Thrones so far.
You're in the good part. We got some video games to talk about. We've got some news to talk about. It's going to be a fun week on the show. I'm still here in Denver with Sean. We're in a different room of your house this time.
Yes, yeah, we're not locked away in the basement this week.
No, we are not. So if things sound different, that is why. What's going on, Sean? Any stuff to tell us about?
I think all my stuff is probably more in the topic section for this week's podcast. I mean, I'm done with student teaching, so that's a nice feeling.
How was that?
It was busy, and now I feel it feels wrong to like not have just a million things on my mind. And I'm still trying to, because the last day with students was Wednesday, and we're recording this on Sunday. So it's been like half a week now. And and that's how I'm halfway through season 1 of Game of Thrones. Is like, I can watch stuff now. I don't have to spend like 2 months making my way through a fucking 50 episode weird 80s mech. I can, spend that time now just watching half of a season of Game of Thrones in like 3 or 4 days. But yeah, so went from extremely busy to being like there's nothing I have to do for a long stretch of time.
I have been that way too, because I got off about 2 weeks ago, and there were a couple days there where I was like that. Now I've found things to do, but it's like, you definitely have a couple days where it's like, you just feel wrong. Yeah. Sitting around, it's like, I have to be doing... No, I don't, actually. I'm fine.
It's like, I need to grade something. I need to plan lessons. I need to answer emails from parents. I need to... Blah, 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 blah. There's so much shit you have to do, and now it's just like slammed into a brick wall, and it's done for a while. It's like, oh my god. What is this
Should
life?
we each tell just like one funny story from a semester of teaching?
Sure. Yeah, if you have one on mind that you want to go with first.
I have one that just shows, like, this is where teaching gets confusing.
Okay, yeah.
So I'm grading papers.
Yes.
And this is so it's a final for college, which means it's a blue book test, which the blue books, if you've never been to college, which probably a good decision in this economy, honestly. We all made horrible mistakes. Is you get these from the library. You have to buy these like little blue, like they're like 10 to 12 pages of just lined paper so that you can't cheat.
Yeah.
Theoretically. And so you get your blue book, and this test was 60% not in the blue book was like multiple choice, fill in the blank, that kind of thing, right? Mm-hmm. And then the other 40% was you used the blue book and you had to write 2 essays.
Okay.
Normal kind of college final. And as you can tell, Sean, or any of our math-inclined listeners, if you don't do one of the 2 parts, you can't pass because it's a 60-40 split. And even if you got everything right on the 60%, that would still be a low D.
Yeah.
So anyway, I'm grading papers, and I hit a block. I had about 60 students, and I'm grading through all the blue books. I had done the other parts first. I'm just grading the essays in the blue books. I get to one where, like, someone had written, like, 1 sentence and stopped. I'm like, okay, well, that person just gave up.
Yeah.
0 F, done, right?
Yeah.
Okay, put that blue book aside. Next one, I open a blue book, totally blank. Just know what, they hadn't written anything in it, totally blank. I'm like, that's weird. I guess they just decided, and it wasn't like an awful student either. I was just like, okay, I guess they decided they didn't want to pass F, and okay. Next blue book, blank. And I'm like, this is weird. This is getting weird. That this is like in a row. And I'm like, and what I had done is they had to turn everything in a big envelope that we had given them the tests in. And I had gone through and taken everything out of the envelope, put it in piles, and thrown all the envelopes away. That's kind of my first step. So, but now I'm in the back of my mind, I'm like, what if they used like a different blue book? What if they had like brought two and like put their names on both, but they did their essays in the other one? And I'm like, what if it was in the envelope? Do I have to go? And I'm like weighing in my mind, like, what are my responsibilities here? And finally, I'm like, God, fuck, I care too goddamn much. And I get up and I go to my garage and I get in my fucking giant trash can. Yeah. And I'm going through these envelopes. And at one point my roommate walks by and is like, what are you doing? I look fucking weird. I'm just like, I've got envelopes spewing across both of our cars in the garage looking for the right ones. And I explain the situation. He's like, that is weird. By the way, no, there were no extra. No, I knew the entire time. I'm like this. I didn't make a mistake. I would have known. It was just that I had the bad luck of like this. And then I go back down and I'm like, okay, there were no extra envelopes. F. Next one. Nobody wrote anything. It's like, what did I do? What did you people? It's bad. I don't get it. And then I'm like, and I smell like garbage. I went through all these fucking envelopes, because it wasn't the last thing I threw away. And it's just. Yeah, that's college for you. I don't get paid enough.
Yeah, I mean, that's not like getting people to do the work is the hardest.
Oh yeah.
By fucking far. So my story, because I think I probably have a couple. The one you just said reminded me of one I'll tell now. I had for the our essay final. I think, this isn't really the story. I'm just trying to think off the top of my head. I think I had 7 or 8 students across what have been about 70 people who did nothing on that final. And there were like 3 or 4 more, which was like, it was an essay basically. And I gave them basically like a week of in-class time and like 2 weeks after that to get like more than enough time for everyone to get everything done if they had put in the work. And past like the 7 or 8 that just did nothing. Of those, 3 of whom being like people who I had seen once or twice the whole semester. So really 5 people who did nothing and 2 or 3 more people who like half finished the essay. And since it was on Google Classroom, I was just I'm just going to give you like 10 points or whatever. If this is the thing that's going to get you to have like a 59.6%, I will give you 10 points for like the paragraph and a half you wrote that's on Google Classroom. And fine, let's just do it that way because you did some work. Even if you're like just didn't take the extra step of submitting it, I wasn't going to fail someone for not hitting the fucking submit button, because I'm probably too nice. But
the lesson I'm hearing so far, Sean, is that you're learning not to be nice.
Yeah, I mean that's the process of being a student teacher. Mostly is like trying to figure out that balance of how much rope do you give them, and it's the thing that's hard is that it's different for everybody. But then I did have one student who plagiarized their final essay.
Nice.
So they failed the class, and like it was a student that shouldn't have fucking failed that class. It was a stupid fucking thing to do. I gave the student extra time on top of it because I had told everybody, if you need more time, if as long as you tell me within this week, we will work out like a specific due date for you. And for everybody else that did that, they turned their shit in on time. This one student asked for extra time. They did turn it in on time. And I was reading their intro paragraph and was reading like the first 2 sentences. I'm like, this is getting pretty good. This is like a good start. And then like in sentence 2, I remember specifically there was like this colon that they used. I was like, that's a great use of a colon. And I had like had this flashback to our one of our SAT prep lessons because I did like a week of SAT grammar lessons on like. Here's how you do some like more technical grammar stuff that we hadn't covered yet. And one of them being talking about the colon. And I talked about how the colon, similar to the semicolon, is primarily a rhetorical piece of punctuation. By which I mean, outside of a couple of specific uses, generally speaking, you only want to use it as like a thing for emphasis. So other than introducing a list, that's like the main thing that a colon is necessary for. Outside of that, it's just used to dramatically introduce some sort of word or phrase. And so
I used to teach it as it is like in a movie, the stinger that goes dun dun dun.
Exactly, yes, it is that whole kind of thing. And we did that. And I have flashback to that. It's like, man, this kid, he like that lesson really worked. It really sunk in. And then this is the like you learn not to be nice and you learn not to be trustful thing. Is that in the back of my mind immediately? I'm like, there's no fucking way that happened. Like I have never had this. In the whole semester, I never once had this like, there was this clear one-to-one link between this mini lesson we did and clearly they used it in their writing because things are not that simple and writing is way more complicated and harder than that. It just never is going to work out that way as like a motherfucker. You didn't fucking come on. Because also the way I set up the essay was it is an essay that is not possible to plagiarize because it's too specific. Because it was Brave New World. We had read Brave New World. And it was you take some sort of topic or theme from Brave New World and write a compare-contrast essay of comparing how that topic was used in Brave New World versus how does that topic work in modern society. Like how close was Aldous Huxley to his predictions and all that kind of stuff. Not an essay you can plagiarize because it's not just a write an essay about Brave New World. It's too specific of a thing. This didn't matter to that one student because what they had done was just gone... into SparkNotes, basically. It wasn't actually SparkNotes, but it was a SparkNotes-esque site, taken some sort of summary of whatever the theme he was writing about was, and just copy and pasted that whole one paragraph, just blopped it right into the essay, changed one or two words around a little bit, but it was like that doesn't matter, like, it is having to have the conversations, like, you do realize if you just, like, have a list of adjectives and you flip, like, which adjective is first in the list, that doesn't mean you didn't fucking plagiarize, and it also doesn't make it any harder to catch on Google. And then the best part was within literally like 15 seconds of looking at the essay, I had gone through that process and figured out that it was that first paragraph was plagiarized. I was like, well, let's see what the rest of it was, and it was a 4-paragraph long essay for what should have been a 5 to 6 paragraphs. Paragraph 1 was a giant block quote from the novel. Not formatted properly, because nobody knows how to fucking format block quotes properly. But it was like literally like 4 to 5 sentences straight from the book, and then one sentence after that analyzing it. Then the next paragraph after that, the exact same fucking thing of a different like 5-sentence passage from Brave New World in like one sentence. By the way, the essay also needed 2 outside sources that you quoted in the essay, so like none of the outside research was there at all if you discount the paragraph he plagiarized. And then 2 sentences of a concluding paragraph. It's like when I looked at it, the student had written 4 sentences that were his own in the whole thing, because the entire intro paragraph is plagiarized. And somehow, in 3 other paragraphs, 4 sentences were his. It's just like what the fuck, dude? How is this... Like, if you're going to cheat, like, spend the effort on cheating and do it well. Like, because you can... And this is the thing I've told them a bunch of times. It's like, so many writers just basically rip off shit they found on the internet. But they do it in a way that's not technically plagiarizing. It's like, if that's what you want to do, then do that. Like, learn how to do that. Like, that's how my brother got through high school, but he didn't fucking cheat through it. Like, he got, like, C's and B's in his English classes, mostly because he just, like, found shit on SparkNotes, and instead of just literally copy and pasting it, he was like, I'm gonna phrase this, read this, try to understand it, and phrase it in my own words. If you take at least that bare minimum step, then you get to pass the class. If not, then you fucking cheated and you fail. Like, why?
Why indeed?
Yeah.
Sean, I feel like this story is the prologue to, like, in 5 years, you being, like, drunk on the podcast, just sad about how your efforts have been for naught.
It's just because it is just so stupid. It's the stupidity of that choice of, like, you had so much fucking time to work on this goddamn thing, and this was the best thing you came up with, and the idea that this would get past anybody is absurd.
The best kind of plagiarisms are the one you don't even need software to catch.
Yes, it's the one where it's like, I read the second sentence and I knew it could have been you that wrote this sentence. Like, that says a lot.
Yep.
Yeah.
I think that's a good way to start the podcast. Let's go ahead and move on, Sean. You want to talk about the news?
What's going on in the news, Jonathan?
A lot of semi-interesting stuff that we can talk about today, starting with BuzzFeed News reported this week. Kate Arthur at BuzzFeed reported that a film adaptation of Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic, I hear it's a good game, is in the works at Lucasfilm. The writer assigned to the movie is Leta Kalogridis. She was hired in early 2018 to develop the property, possibly as the first part of a potential trilogy. Again, like, they're still in the writing stages. Big decisions like that haven't necessarily been made. But this screenwriter, Kalogridis, she's written things like Oliver Stone's Alexander movie, Martin Scorsese's Shutter Island, this year's Alita Battle Angel. She was the creator of the TV series Altered Carbon, which I heard a lot of good things about. And she has written the screenplay for Hollywood's upcoming Sword Art Online movie, which I did not know was in the works.
What?
Yeah.
Hold on. There's a screenplay for a Hollywood, I'm assuming a live-action adaptation of Sword Art Online.
Yeah.
Okay, then.
Don't hold it against her.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That movie maybe will never come out.
No, it maybe will never come out. But yes, I just think that's an interesting rap sheet. There's good movies and bad movies on there. Oliver Stone's Alexander is not her fault.
No. But there's interesting things in that movie.
There are. And Martin Scorsese's Shutter Island is a great movie.
Yeah.
I really liked Alita Battle Angel. She wrote that with James Cameron. And again, I've heard good things about Altered Carbon. That sounds like the kind of person I would want doing a KOTOR adaptation. And I think, like, whether it's KOTOR or not, again, I have not played that game, so... but I know it's supposed to be very good. I'm just excited that, like, Lucasfilm is saying, hey, let's do something that is not original trilogy era, masturbatory nostalgia. I'm just like, yes, sign me up. I want that.
Yeah, no, like, the thing I'm most curious about this is how much of it is we are taking things from the plot of Knights of the Old Republic and turning that into a movie, and how much of it is we just want to use the setting. And, like, maybe... I'm sure there'll be, like, if he's not a main character, there would at least be a reference to, like, Darth Revan, who's one of the main guys from the KOTOR games. Like, I'm sure at least some of those elements are going to be there. But yeah, for me, the main thing I would be excited for is just that let's go to a totally different spot of the Star Wars universe. Obviously, we've seen this in the games, but we've never seen it in any of the movies or the TV shows. And it's a cool setting, specifically because it allows you to have a lot of Jedi, but also a lot of Sith. And so there's, like... It's a more vibrant period for both sides of, like, the Force divide, and those factions are actually around. And that's something that you can do a lot of stuff with, that in the prequel trilogy you had a lot of Jedi, but you only had Darth Sidious and whoever Darth Sidious' apprentice was at the time. So that's something that's always held back. Prequel era stuff is that, like, anytime you want to have a lightsaber fight in any of the expanded universe stuff, or like Clone Wars, you kind of just have to make someone up like Asajj Ventress. And if you go way back into the past, it's like such a blank canvas that you can just create as many characters as you want and have them be who you want to be, and there aren't as many rules for which factions have, like, which kind of characters and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah, the idea of a Old Republic movie, whether or not it's here's the plot of the game, like, they should just use that setting.
Absolutely. Like, I think a plot of the game adaptation could be good, totally. Yeah. But I'd honestly almost be more excited if it was just the world and, like, we do new stories there.
Yeah.
And you could use elements from the BioWare games, but, like, I think, like, you'd probably have a better chance at it being good if you just kind of do your own thing with it.
Yeah.
But either way, I think that is heartening news, because we don't know what the Benioff and Weiss movie is yet. We don't know what Rian Johnson's working on. This is, like, our first peek into what Lucasfilm is cooking for, like, the next generation of Star Wars movies. And if they're going to be more adventurous like this, which, honestly, this shouldn't even count as that adventurous, given that it is the plot of one of the most successful video games of all time.
Yeah.
But for Lucasfilm, it's very adventurous, and it's, like, good first step.
Yeah, I mean, you can't have everyone piloting X-Wings. Like, that's like, the baby step they need to make for their fucking Star Wars shit is, like, have something other than a goddamn X-Wing. Have a different lightsaber design than fucking Anakin's lightsaber, you know?
Yeah. You know, now that I'm thinking about it, the one thing that is sad from this, like, era of Lucasfilm to me is that I feel like the flop of Solo and just the general sense of oversaturation means we're probably never going to get that fucking Obi-Wan movie, and that's like the one spin-off I wanted.
Yeah, no, it's like, for whatever reason, the fucking Star Wars stories they went for first were the let's do the fucking steal the Death Star plans movie, which wasn't even what that fucking movie was. I'm still upset that Rogue One was not the fucking Star Wars heist movie. It somehow Solo is. But then they made the young Han Solo movie. And it's like, why not put the Obi-Wan one in front of all of that shit? Because you already have Ewan McGregor. He's amazing. He will at least make that movie intensely watchable, even if the movie wasn't going to be good.
Oh, well. You know, maybe they'll do it for Disney+. That actually might even be better.
Yeah.
If they can afford Ewan McGregor for that.
There you go.
It's Disney. What do I mean if they can afford it? They can afford whatever the fuck they want.
They already own him somehow. Like, he already sold his soul to them when he made something for them.
All right. Next, director Jeff Fowler announced this week on Twitter that the Sonic the Hedgehog movie, which we talked about last week because it looks horrifying, has been delayed to February 14th, 2020. So if you really want to freak out your date for Valentine's Day, take him to see weird-ass Sonic. I'm sure that'll be a great aphrodisiac. Jeff Fowler sort of implied in his tweet, and everyone has been assuming that it is to give the visual effects artist time to fix the design of Sonic, which they announced they'd be doing. But I think people are a little too credulous about that.
Yes, yeah.
Let me point this out. The original date for this movie was November 8th of this year. That is 1 week after the new Terminator movie. It's the same week as the Stephen King Dr. Sleep adaptation, the sequel to The Shining, and Roland Emmerich's new movie, Midway. It's the week before Frozen 2, the new Charlie's Angels, and the Mr. Rogers movie. So, that's a pretty busy month. It's moving to February 14th, where it'll be up against Kingsman 3, which is not in the same demographic.
Yeah, that's not competition.
And there are no family films scheduled after it until Mulan a full month later. So, do the math. I'm sure the VFX thing was a consideration, but I also think it's probably an excuse to be boy, people really didn't like that trailer. This movie's probably going to flop in November. If we get one good week out of it, then Frozen 2 comes out and literally takes all our screens. Maybe February? February, yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure that like you said, I'm sure all those things were part of the calculation. But yes, if they really wanted to hit that November date, they would have just made the VFX people crunch to hit that November date.
Also, 3 months isn't that much.
Yeah.
If you're redesigning the main character in the movie.
I mean, that's not a salvageable proposition. But I did find it very funny when I was in the theater earlier today watching Detective Pikachu, that one of the trailers I got was the Sonic the Hedgehog trailer. And it's is it even okay for them to show this trailer if this isn't even what the fucking movie's going to be anymore? If they're going to completely redesign the main character, can you still show this trailer in movie theaters? That feels weird.
I've got to tell a story about that. When I went to see Detective Pikachu, it was opening night and it was full, the theater, and the Sonic trailer came up, Sean, and literally the entire theater audibly went, ugh, I don't want to watch this.
In my movie theater, it was the exact same thing. Maybe not as impressive, but everybody in that movie theater, all me, went, ugh.
Yeah, you were alone in the theater.
Yes, I was alone. I'll tell that story when we get to Detective Pikachu.
Okay.
But yes, I also audibly sighed when I said, oh, they're fucking showing, this trailer, ugh.
Couple more pieces of movie news. Let's move this up, Sean, because we were just talking about it. Terminator, which is also coming out in November.
Uh-huh.
So the new Terminator, this is Terminator 6, I think. It is called Terminator Dark Fate. Oh, you're doing the math for me.
Yes, it's 6.
Okay.
Yes, Genesis was 5, yeah.
Yes, it's the fourth attempt to launch a sequel trilogy.
Yeah.
There have been more attempts to launch a sequel trilogy than there are entries in a trilogy.
Yeah.
Okay, but anyway, Terminator Dark Fate is the new Terminator movie with Linda Hamilton back. It's directed by the guy who directed the first Deadpool, Tim Story, and James Cameron. They're making a big deal out of James Cameron is back producing. His name has been on every single Terminator movie. That's
what I like, because I'm glad, because I forgot to look it up. I remember when I saw the trailer and I saw that, it's surely his name has been attached to all of these fucking movies. He's the guy who made fucking Terminator.
I mean, legally it has to be.
Exactly.
It's just it's how much, and he has had more involvement in this one, but I will remind you all, Terminator Genesis, the super bad one that came out a few years ago, he did videos saying, as producer of Terminator Genesis, I think this is the best one since the original and all this. Do you remember those?
Yes.
Yeah. So, it's totally, they're making shit up here. But yeah, so we finally have a trailer, Terminator Dark Fate. The movie has 6 credited writers, which is always a good sign. Mm-hmm. Just a mess of ampersands. And, it looks... Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me once, shame on... I don't know. Fool me 6 fucking times, I don't even fucking know. People who are excited for this are goddamn idiots. This looks horrible. It actually looks like it has the exact same problem as Deadpool 1, which is that it's completely monochromatic and looks like it was shot for $5, which I at least get for Deadpool because that movie was low budget.
Yeah.
And I didn't really mind it. This is fucking Terminator. I know none of these movies have been hits since Terminator 2, but still, it just looks bad. It's completely repetitive. Every single thing in it is meant to make you think oh, I remember Terminator. And it's
which is what Genesis was.
Yep. And Terminator 4 and Terminator 3.
Yeah. When I watched the fucking trailer, literally the thing that kept on going through my mind was, I could see myself being mildly enthused about this if they had not made Terminator Genesis. I mean, to be fair, I've only seen Terminator 1, 2, and the Sarah Connor Chronicles. I've not seen anything outside of that because they've never fooled me. You can't get me in the fucking seat for any of those other goddamn Terminator movies because I didn't even like Terminator 2 that much. I like Terminator 2. I don't like it that much.
I don't either, yeah.
So it's like, I'm definitely not going to fucking see Terminator 3. But I could see, like, hypothetically being like, okay, you got Linda Hamilton back. You got Arnold Schwarzenegger. They're like, sure, like a weird, dumb throwback Terminator movie. If the last Terminator movie they had made was Salvation, which came out in like 2007 or some shit, like, yeah, I could see that. You can't do it when we just had this. You just fucking did this. Because wasn't Arnold Schwarzenegger in Genesis also?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, like you can't...
He's in all of them. The only one he's not in a ton is Salvation, but he is in it.
Yeah, because that came out when he was the governor, right?
Yeah.
So they had like a CGI
yes.
Arnold and shit. So like, again, like if they hadn't literally just done this exact same thing, I could see myself being like, hey, Linda Hamilton's in this one. Maybe if it has good reviews, I'll catch it on Netflix someday. But it's like, you can't just expect people to sit down and see another trailer for another fucking Terminator movie, and also a Terminator movie called Terminator Dark Fate, which is the most fucking bargain bin fucking like dime store novel adaptation of some Terminator thing.
It sounds like a video game adaptation you would find in a store for $2 because no one bought it.
It's just it's so tragic. It's so sad watching this happen to this franchise. And just, it like, you know, true to its name, the Terminator movie franchise is much like the Terminator. It just keeps on fucking limping along, even when it's clearly been defeated. Like, it's like, I just rewatched the first Terminator movie a couple of months ago, and this is... Like someone needs to make some sort of meme video of taking the end when the Terminator's all like stop motion. It's super cool at the end of that movie, and it just keeps on getting fucked up and crushed and ripped apart and all this shit. And each time you just like copy and paste the fucking another poster for one of these movies over the front of it because they just keep on marching along even though everyone knows it's over.
Yeah. Okay, a couple of things. First, I said the director was Tim Story. That's not right. That's the guy who made Fantastic Four, the original one, and I don't know why I'm thinking that. I am forgetting his name now. It does not matter. But anyway, you can look it up.
Yeah.
Director of Deadpool. Second thing, you said Terminator Salvation was like 2007. It was 2009, Sean. It's been 10 fucking years. It hasn't even been a decade.
Oh my god.
Right? So they have done so many reboots in this decade. Terminator Genesis was also marketed as... this is like the sequel that ignores the other sequels.
Exactly.
They're doing another one that like, no, this is the sequel that ignores the other sequels. It's like... they're all so... Terminator is not a franchise. The thing that makes Terminator 1 a great movie, and I think Terminator 1 is a great movie.
Fucking yes, it is. As someone who, again, just rewatched it for like the fourth time a couple months ago, that movie is awesome.
It is so good, but it is definitively close-ended. Like, it is like, there will be no sequel. Terminator 2 is good. I think we would both agree. You and I don't love it as much as some people, but I get why people love it.
It's a very fun action movie.
Yeah.
It's just, you know, I think the story content is... it has to make a lot of leaps to justify that movie existing.
Yeah.
And, like, the movie is too long because of a lot of that stuff.
It's too long because James Cameron, other than Terminator 1, all his movies are too long.
Yes. Yeah.
But then, like, the thing is, Terminator 3, Rise of the Machines, is not that good a movie. It is so head and shoulders above the other Terminator sequels because it's got really good action sequences. There's this thing with a truck chase in the Terminator.
I've seen that scene. I watched that scene on YouTube one time. It was like I have seen enough of Terminator 3. I'm good.
Yeah, that's a good scene. Yeah. And the ending is really cool where it's just they think they've won and then Judgment Day happens and John Connor has to like pick up the communicator and start leading. That is good. Then Terminator Salvation has no reason to exist and is boring and shitty. Terminator Genesis is the fucking worst. It is just the bottom of the fucking barrel. And now it's like, okay, you got Linda Hamilton back. You've got some good actors in this. They've all had good actors in them. I don't care. You can't... like, the point of the franchise is you can't do sequels. Like, it's one of the weirdest franchises. And, like, the Sarah Connor Chronicles show is a fucking miracle. Because it's not a great show. But, like, the fact that show works at all is amazing.
Yeah.
But also kind of proves that this thing just can't... it doesn't have legs.
Because it is the only thing you could do, like, narrative-wise, for a sequel to Terminator, is to do, like, kind of what they were trying to do. Like, if you take Terminator 3 and Terminator Salvation, Where Terminator 3 is Judgment Day happens, we weren't able to stop it. Terminator Salvation is John Connor, like, starting to fight that war. Like, these are not stories that need to be told, or probably should be told, but if you, like, twist someone's arm and say you have to continue to make Terminator movies, the only way to do it is to eventually get to the other side, the flip side of Terminator 1, and see John Connor send Kyle Reese back in time and, like, have movies that are just set during the war, during, like, modern day or whatever. That's the only way to do it, and you could maybe do something interesting if you got a really good team together that did some interesting commentary on modern society and how we are now in the future that Terminator predicted. Like, something like that, you could maybe do that. But that's literally the only thing, and they're clearly not going to try to do that because all they want to do is just do Terminator 2 over and over again.
And the other thing is, look, we all love Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Yeah.
We'll watch him and stuff. We all kind of actually love him as a political voice now, too, because he's kind of a voice of reason in this crazy age. We like Arnold Schwarzenegger. If you're doing Terminator sequels with Arnold Schwarzenegger, I'm sorry, you're doing it wrong. Because they've killed his character over and over. I know the name of the movie is The Terminator, but he's not the main character. It's like so putting the cart before the horse.
Yeah.
It's so... That, to me, is like the biggest missing the point thing. So I don't know. Maybe this movie will be good. Probably not.
No.
We don't need it, and I don't need people on Twitter being like, no, this is the time. They've only fucked it up 7 times before. This is the time. Shut up.
Yeah. The director is Tim Miller, by the way.
I had the Tim right.
Yes, you did have. You got that's the most important part. That's how we know people. It's just the first name.
Tim. Yes.
It's directed by Tim.
Okay, a sequel that we know will be good, Sean.
Okay.
John Wick Chapter 4 was already greenlit before opening weekend ended of John Wick 3. It's coming out May 21st, 2021. And we'll talk about John Wick 3 later. I was very happy John Wick 3 is not the end of this trilogy because I want more John Wick.
Yes, it was smart of them to leave the ending open. Because I feel like even when they maybe know that they would not be able to make another John Wick movie, they'll probably just leave the ending open because that's how it has to be. But it was definitely fucking John Wick 3 made so much money, especially compared to it's like for the franchise. You just never really see that of where like it's just sort of meteoric the rise of the box office take.
John Wick 3 made more opening weekend than John Wick 1 did in its entire theatrical life worldwide.
Yeah, so I feel like as soon as like people saw that start happening, they're like, make another one now. Just go start making another one. We need to get another John Wick movie out as soon as possible.
I mean,
because if you look at the graph, if like the math keeps on going and they just keep on making really good John Wick movies, you just make infinite money. I think that's how movies work.
I mean, let's do so. Sean, opening weekends.
Yeah,
I was at the opening weekend for all 3 of these. John Wick 1, $14 million. When I went to see it, not many people in the theater. John Wick 2, $30 million, doubled it. Mm-hmm. Many more people in the theater.
Yep.
John Wick 3, I saw it in the biggest theater in Colorado, and it was like mostly full, which was awesome.
Yep.
$56 million, almost doubled again. This doesn't happen. This literally just doesn't happen anymore, where you just have a completely original IP, comes out of nowhere, starts very, very like low, modestly budgeted, comes out, is kind of a sleeper hit. They do a sequel thinking, the last one made its money back, why not? Sequel's a huge hit. Do a third one. Third one's really huge hit. And they're like, okay, this train's going. Everyone is having fun doing these. We all love them. They're all critically acclaimed.
Yep.
Everyone enjoys them. Like, the John Wick trilogy has been one of the best parts of cinema this decade. And I say that without irony. It's so much fun. We'll talk about the movie later. 3 is great, and I think the setup for 4 is so fucking good.
Yes.
I want it now.
Just keep on making these movies forever. Like it's the great thing about action movies is the action movies are sort of like horror movies in this regard. It's like as long as you can keep on making them well, like you can make an infinite number of Friday the 13th movies. If you like, obviously, eventually people are going to stop watching them because they start turning to shit. And Friday the 13th is a bad example because the first one's not even good. But like something like Nightmare on Elm Street, they're good Nightmare on Elm Street movies. You can make those forever as long as good people keep on making them because the premise is infinitely modifiable, and it's like it's more about the independent scenes and stuff like that than it is about the overarching plot. Action movies are the same way, so you could make John Wick as long as you can keep on justifying and making plot things that can keep the story moving forward, and you get Keanu Reeves back, and you get the directors back, and you get like everybody involved again. You can make these movies forever because there are an infinite number of amazing action scenes that can be made with all those people together.
Yeah, and just also like the Keanu Reeves of it all, I am so happy he is having this moment.
Yeah.
Because, one, it couldn't happen to a better person.
Yeah.
He is just, you read about him, he is like literally the nicest dude in Hollywood. Nobody has a bad Keanu Reeves story. And like, I feel like we kind of went through those years after The Matrix where he kept getting dismissed, including sometimes by people on this podcast. You and me sometimes. I was like, oh, he's kind of a bad actor. And he's not. He's actually a very good actor with the right material and in his own wheelhouse, which there's no shame in that whatsoever. Everybody has a wheelhouse. And I think you do this and you're like, oh God, he's one of the greats at this kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And there's no shame in being one of the greats alongside Buster Keaton and Jackie Chan.
Yeah, and especially because I feel like American cinema just has very few actors that are in this specific mold of like, because you can kind of maybe put like Tom Cruise a little bit in it because Tom Cruise does all of his own stunts, but Keanu Reeves has more of that like Jackie Chan-ish, Donnie Yen, like going back to like Bruce Lee, like that sort of like action thing to it where he does almost all of his own stunts and he does all the training and he's like very hands-on in terms of crafting the scenes, and it's that kind of like pseudo-auteur action thing that these movies have that is just not typically what we get from American action movies, which is why these movies are so fucking awesome. Yeah. And it's really cool to see Keanu Reeves be able to become that, because I don't think anyone would have expected that before these movies started coming out. That's like where he would be able to go with it.
I mean, because he did this in The Matrix too. This is part of why The Matrix works, is that he can do the stuff as Neo that like they need him to do, and some of the martial arts in those movies is really good. But then after The Matrix, like, no one else was making these kind of movies. There wasn't really a place for him. He's doing stuff like The Lake House with Sandra Bullock. Like, you know, and he is good in some other movies, like, absolutely. He's also, obviously, I think has a really good sense of humor if you put him in something like Bill and Ted, which we're doing another one of, and I'm like, all for it, fuck it, why not, at this point? But yeah, I just think this is cool. We're getting another John Wick in 2 years. I'm so happy.
Yeah, these are awesome movies.
All right, so another piece of news. This kind of was old news, but I just learned it. It came up again because the studio that is making the live-action Akira movie, so this is the adaptation of the famous anime film Akira. Hollywood has been trying to make this forever. Mm-hmm. There's been a long history to it. They finally dated it. They're also planning to put it out May 21st, 2021 against John Wick 4. That's not happening. Akira is going to flinch before John Wick flinches, I think, at this point.
Yeah, definitely.
But yes, I did not know this, though. Taika Waititi, the director of Thor Ragnarok, and What We Do in the Shadows and Hunt for the awesome dude. We all love Taika Waititi. He is directing the Akira movie, and that had happened like a few months ago. He'd been signed to that, but I'd missed it. It's kind of cool. He is the first person attached to this movie who is promising to cast Asian actors. I hope Asian means Japanese.
Yes, yeah.
Which because Hollywood really is too interchangeable in that way. Mm-hmm. But it's a start. Because remember, this movie almost got made with Keanu Reeves at one point, who we love Keanu Reeves. He is not, in fact, Asian. Garrett Hedlund was going to be in it at one point, so just white as we can fucking be. Yeah, so Taika Waititi, it's an interesting choice for the Akira movie. It sounds like they are really like committed to actually doing it now. I don't know. We love Taika Waititi, but we were talking about this off the air, Sean. There should not be a live-action Akira movie. Yeah. It's a dumb idea. All the stuff that makes Akira special and interesting, one, you just physically can't do in live action, and two, I don't think you can do in a Hollywood movie, because like some of the things, like just the ambiguity of the ending, it's not even ambiguous, the city just blows the fuck up. They're not going to let you do that in a Hollywood movie, so I don't know.
Yeah, it's just like, there is something interesting between like the stuff like this, Alita Battle Angel, the fucking Scarlett Johansson Ghost in the Shell movie. There's this sense of like these like anime-based projects that Hollywood has been trying to do for a long time, like eventually are getting done. And I think probably part of the reason why like a lot of these movies are finally actually being put into production is because anime is becoming so much more successful and it's a much bigger business over here. And like once you have people like Netflix turning around and becoming way more invested in it, that's probably why eventually like these studios are trying to get committed to this stuff. But I just don't think it's almost ever a good idea. No. Like it's like I have a certain fondness for what Japan has been doing with like their very like direct specific adaptations of where they're like, okay, you're going to have just 5 pounds of hair gel to get your hair to look exactly like this character's hair, and like all the costumes look exactly like the manga or whatever. Like Japan has been doing that for a while, and I've seen a couple of those kinds of movies. The only one I thought was good was the first Rurouni Kenshin one, because they really went in kind of a slightly different direction with that. But like, I think generally speaking, it's just a very hard move to make, to take something that's anime and so stylized and bring it into live action. You have to find something that's where the plot and like the character stuff is very good, and that's what you're trying to capture. And like for a lot of anime, like so much of that stuff is communicated through like really extreme action, and particularly the stuff like something like in Akira they're trying to pull from, or Ghost in the Shell. Like the concepts and the world that you're trying to build, like it's so much better executed when it's just an animated movie. Don't do this. Like, go, if you want to make an anime adaptation, go find something else. Like, go find something else that would be easier to do than this. Yeah.
I liked Alita Battle Angel a lot, mostly because of the main actress, and I think the effects were really good. Still, I think the only anime adaptation in live action that has fully worked for me is the Wachowski siblings Speed Racer.
Right, yeah.
And part of that is because Speed Racer is, like, pretty much animated. Yeah. And, like, also the Wachowskis are sort of visual mad women now. And it's like, there's just, you need to be a little unhinged to make it work. And Speed Racer is fucking unhinged.
Yeah.
And it also flopped spectacularly. So, like, that's part of it. It's just the overall, it's like Hollywood is like, this thing is popular, so if we make it and we make it look like every other Hollywood movie, it'll be popular, right? It's like, no, your Hollywood movies aren't popular. Anime is popular.
Yeah.
The secret would be like, don't make a Dragon Ball movie, put Dragon Ball Super Broly into theaters, which is what they did and made a huge profit.
Yeah.
You know, I think the one thing, Sean, that is good about Disney buying Fox is that means there probably will not be another live-action Dragon Ball movie, because Disney doesn't need it. They don't need to fuck around with that. But Fox was just like flailing all over the place. They were probably a few years away from doing Dragon Ball Evolution 2. Like, let's be perfectly honest. They were going to take another crack at it. If there can be 6 Terminator movies, they could try, especially with where Dragon Ball is right now.
Yeah, it is like amazing to think about, because of all of the anime that is impossible to make into a fucking live action movie, Dragon Ball is damn near the fucking top.
Yes.
Like, it's I could not possibly fathom how you'd make a good Dragon Ball live action thing. Like, I can see eventually there being a good Ghost in the Shell or Akira movie. Like, that is feasible to me. I don't think it will happen. But there are some, like Dragon Ball, that you should just not step into. You should stay the fuck away.
What I'm confused by is why, like, mech anime isn't getting more because those you can do.
Yeah.
Because you can do big, like Pacific Rim showed us that. Like,
yeah, because mech stuff is very closely related to kaiju stuff, and we're getting like all these Godzilla movies and Kong Skull Island and all that kind of stuff that like you can do. Hey man, I think they are saying that they're trying to make a Gundam movie, right? Didn't that news come out a couple of months ago? That probably will never happen. But you could 100% make a good Gundam movie. That is very feasible in a way that Akira I don't think is.
And it's also just like I am glad that Taika Waititi is like, no, we're going to cast this racially correct because the movie's title is fucking Akira.
Yeah.
Like, I do think there are some anime adaptations where you can do it with white people and it doesn't so much matter. Like Speed Racer, I am not offended by that being white people. It's fucking Speed Racer. It doesn't matter.
I mean, Speed Racer is more of a movie of the English dub of Speed Racer than it is of Speed Racer anyways.
Yeah, it's not Maka Go-Go. It's Speed Racer. But like, if you're doing, Alita at least was, they CGI'd her. And she's a robot. But like, yes, if you were doing the movie called Akira and it's in Nioh Tokyo and you had, I don't know, Tom Cruise in the movie or something, which I'm sure at one point in development they were going to do, that just wouldn't fucking work.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, I also learned that Taika Waititi has directed episodes of The Mandalorian, the Disney Plus Star Wars show. You got him and Jon Favreau. I'm excited for that show.
Yeah, Yep.
That show's probably going to be pretty good.
I will definitely at least check it out once the Disney Plus thing happens.
Speaking of streaming television, CBS All Access put out the teaser for the next Star Trek series they're doing. It's called Star Trek Picard. It is the return of Patrick Stewart to his greatest role of Jean-Luc Picard. It is set 20 years after Star Trek Nemesis, which is the last Next Generation movie. We all kind of hoped they would just pretend the movies didn't happen, but they're not doing that.
Yeah.
But it is a mini-series. It's 10 episodes following up on like where Picard is later in life. In the teaser, we see him at the vineyard where, in the series finale of The Next Generation, we know in later life he moves to that vineyard. That's where his family is from on Earth, in California. So he's there, the Chateau Picard. Something has happened. It seems like they are building off of what happened in the reboot movie, Star Trek '09, where Romulus was destroyed.
Yeah.
And that would have happened in the Next Generation timeline post-Nemesis. And it looks like how they're setting it up is Picard led the rescue efforts on Romulus, and now he has left Starfleet because something happened with that. I like everything I just said so much.
Yeah.
And that teaser was a good little teaser. I don't know if the show will be good, but if you ask me to list my absolute short list of favorite fictional characters, Jean-Luc Picard is in the top 3. Like, it is so high up there for me that I hope they don't fuck this up, but I am excited for it.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good premise. He's an awesome character, and so, Patrick Stewart is fucking great. So,
yeah,
getting him back in and doing something, it's definitely far preferable to doing like a let's do the J.J. Abrams Star Trek thing, but now with the Next Generation characters.
Yeah, please God, no.
Yeah, don't do that. We're good. Yeah, so I don't have a huge amount of faith that the show itself is going to be amazing because I feel like Star Trek is hard to do, and most Star Trek is not good. So,
well, I disagree with some of that, but yes, it's.
Well, how much of the wide range of Star Trek have you seen?
I mean, the original series of Next Generation I love deeply.
Yeah.
Deep Space Nine, people say is great, and one day I want to watch it. Voyager, people agree is bad. Enterprise, people agree is bad until the last season, and Discovery I haven't watched yet, so I don't know.
Like, I feel like people are very up and down on Discovery.
I'm gonna watch.
I feel like there are people that really like season 1 of Discovery and really hate season 2, and there are people who really hate season 1 and like season 2 of Discovery. So,
well, because completely different people made them.
Yeah.
Yes, I mean, I'm going to watch it at some point because I'm going to have to get CBS All Access for this, and I'll probably get it a month early and watch Discovery. But yeah, I will say, so I have been on a Star Trek The Next Generation kick recently, and I've been doing it for a couple of reasons. I kind of realized, like, when the Picard teaser came out, I'm like, oh, there's actually a good reason for me to be rewatching this.
Yeah.
The other thing is that we're planning on, at some point, doing a Top 10 TV Shows episode. It might be Podcast 300.
Who knows?
Yeah, who knows? We know you guys have requested that. And Next Generation would be in the mix for me, so I'm trying to kind of re-ingratiate myself with it. And one, that is such an amazing show. It is. I've been rewatching season 3, which is the best season, but it is like that season is just hit, masterpiece, hit, masterpiece, hit, masterpiece, and then best of both worlds, best cliffhanger of all time.
Yeah,
like it's an amazing season, and just rewatching it again to me struck me on like Patrick Stewart is giving the performance of a goddamn lifetime on that show. Whether the material is up to him or not, he will come at it like it is Shakespeare, and it is his one night to perform it. It is amazing. Like, there's this, one of the worst episodes of season 3 is called Menage a Trois, and it is, well, it's Menage a Troy because it's about Deanna Troi.
Right.
The title is a bad pun. It's she and her mother and Riker get kidnapped by the Ferengi, and it's kind of a dumb episode, but then the end is they get everyone back except Laxwana Troi, and she is on the ship with this Ferengi who wants to, like, be her mate, and Deanna whispers to Picard, he's like, you have to fight for her or the Ferengi won't let her go. So Picard starts reciting Shakespearean love poems to, like, show how much he loves Troy. If you have, or Laxwana Troi, the mother, if you've never seen that scene, those 5 minutes are some of Patrick Stewart's best acting because it is him using his full Shakespearean powers to make you laugh your goddamn ass off. And I watched this today, and I was also watching the episode Sarek, which is where they bring back Spock's dad, Sarek. Yeah. And it's the episode is he has, like, Vulcan Alzheimer's, and he does a mind meld with Picard. So Picard takes on all of his, like, emotional turmoil because of the dementia, and Sarek takes on some of Picard's, like, emotional stability so he can go do this conference, this meeting with this alien race. And there is this long, like 2 or 3 minute long take of Patrick Stewart breaking down as he feels Sarek's emotions. It's one of the best performances of all time, Patrick Stewart on that show. And, like, that is why, like, with this show, I am both excited and trepidatious because it is a hell of a legacy for them to fuck up or make good on.
Yeah.
And I hope they make good on it. I think the idea of this being in the fallout of the Romulus thing, I actually really like because The other thing is, I had forgotten this, but the Romulans are the main villains of Next Generation, because they're kind of like the last major alien race that the Federation is not friends with yet. And Picard is constantly having to deal with the fucking Romulans. The Star Trek Nemesis there's a Romulan clone of him, played by Tom Hardy, before he was famous. And that movie ends even with an overture to maybe making peace with the Romulan Empire. And I think the idea of the thing that broke Picard having to, like, deal with the eradication of this enemy race is a really compelling plot point to use, and also I think makes more out of what was at the time kind of like, you guys just blew up Romulus in Star Trek '09, like that's kind of a big deal, you know. I think making something out of that is exciting. So
yeah, I think one of the things that makes me trepidatious about it is like, Star Trek is designed to be like super episodic television, right? And so I think that's one of the reasons why Star Trek has struggled really hard, is that is very difficult to do, and TV has moved away from that. And most things have moved away from that. And so we like to do long, like, serialized stories mostly. And so I think, like, which is not to say that it's impossible to do, but kind of like with Akira, I think it's a very difficult thing to do very well, and I am just in a pessimistic mood. So I look at it, I'm like, I don't think it's like, I wouldn't put my chips down on this show being good, but The Next Generation is very good.
Yeah, and I guess the other thing that, if I have any concern, is that maybe they'll be there, but they haven't announced any of the other cast members being in this.
Yeah.
And part of that also is, like, Picard is as good as his surroundings, too.
Exactly.
Like, it depends on that cast, too. And, like, maybe it'll be fine. Jonathan Frakes, who played Riker, is directing on the show, so hopefully they just get him out behind the camera to do a scene as Riker. But, like, doing an entire 10 episodes where Picard is completely away from the cast we know him against, I don't know if I'd want that.
Yeah, because all of the captain characters in Star Trek in particular, like, you know, it's like a show that was just Kirk and there's no Spock or McCoy is like what is that show, right?
It's even like Star Trek Generations is Kirk with Picard, and as much as I love those two characters, like, Kirk and Picard aren't really built to be interesting together.
Yeah, exactly. They're characters that are like linchpins of their cast, but on their own, they don't have that much. Like, they need everything else that they're reacting to.
Yeah.
To like dig into those characters.
So we'll see. I think it's cool they're doing it. It's exciting. You know, it's better than Patrick Stewart being in the Emoji Movie, which he did, if you forgot. Yeah. But yeah, we'll see how this goes. They should definitely have an episode where Ian McKellen is in there, so we can get another scene with the two of them together before they die. I need that. They just put up... Patrick Stewart was just wishing Ian McKellen happy birthday on Twitter the other day, and I'm like, they've been in a lot of things together. They've never been in Star Trek together. They should do that. Anyway, moving on to video games.
What's going on with video games, Jonathan?
There was a leak this week about the new Call of Duty, Sean. We knew it was a Modern Warfare game. That's been an open secret for a while, but we learned this week the title of this year's Call of Duty, and it is, drumroll, Call of Duty Modern Warfare. That's it. That's the title. It's very confusing. This goes in the long line of video game and movie titles that are an utter SEO nightmare. Just, what the hell?
Yeah, so we should be very clear that this is not confirmed by Activision, but it was leaked, and then Jason Schreier, who we have talked about his stuff all the time, because he puts out those big long reports on what's going on in different development studios. He like immediately kind of just confirmed, like, yep, this is what it is. So there's still a chance that, like, I have no doubt that right now internally Activision is like, this is Call of Duty Modern Warfare. I think there's maybe now a chance that there'll be like let's just call it fucking whatever, Call of Duty Modern Warfare 4. Let's put something else on there. Like,
Modern Warfare Reloaded.
Yeah, like, let's do something to make it not just Call of Duty Modern Warfare. Like, I understand the issue of Call of Duty 4 Modern Warfare and Call of Duty Modern Warfare 4. Like, they're in a tight spot. And I recognize they fucked up. They fucked up along the way. They fucked up a long time ago. All this stuff got fucked up. But they keep on kind of sticking their foot in it and doing shit like making it so it's Black Ops 4 with the Roman numeral 1111 instead of fucking IV, because you're idiots. So yeah, like, just don't do this. Figure something out. Do something. Like, you don't have to call it Modern Warfare. I don't know if that name even has any sort of sway with anybody anymore. Like, the juniors that I taught, what they would have been like 4 or 5 years old when fucking Call of Duty 4 came out. So,
you shut your whore mouth, Sean.
They were born in like 2002. So,
you shut your whore mouth.
So they're like 5 years old when that game came out. So, which means they would have been like 9 or something when the last Modern Warfare game came out. So it's like,
yeah,
I don't feel like that name holds a lot of sway. You can do something else. Just don't do this, please, because it's fucking dumb. It's just a dumb name.
I have a suggestion.
No.
Okay. They made Gears of War 4, and I wanted it to be Gears of 4, and they didn't do it. They made God of War 4, and I said it should be called God of 4, and they didn't do it, God of War. Now they have this. They could call it Call of Duty Modern Warfare, but they're not going to. We didn't get Transformers, we didn't get Gears of 4, we didn't get God of 4, we're not going to get Modern Warfare. I don't even know what to do, Sean.
Maybe we go back to the thing where everything was just trilogies instead of now everything just goes on forever.
I like my suggestion of Modern Warfare Reloaded. That actually is kind of a cool title that it implies that we're doing something new with it, and I like Reloaded as a sequel title.
Yeah.
So I say
I think because here's the other problem is we already have Call of Duty 4 Modern Warfare Remastered. Yes. So we're going to have now 3 different fucking games that are basically just called Call of Duty Modern Warfare.
But here's the wonderful thing, Sean, is you're forgetting they didn't call when they did the remaster. It's not called Call of Duty 4 Modern Warfare Remastered. It's just Call of Duty Modern Warfare Remastered.
Is that better or worse?
This is what I'm saying is on the like PlayStation Store now, you'll search for Call of Duty Modern Warfare, and there'll be one that says Modern Warfare Remastered and one that is just Modern Warfare, and you'll be like, which one's which? I guess Remastered. That sounds better. That sounds new. Why is it cheaper? I don't know. Yeah.
Now, can you imagine though the scenario we're in when in the year 2029 when we're living on Mars or whatever? I mean, no, we'll all be dead by then. But in the year, hypothetically, in the year 2029, when they release a remaster of this Call of Duty Modern Warfare, and where we have a backwards compatibility updated version of Call of Duty 4 Modern Warfare, and of one of Call of Duty Modern Warfare Remastered, and one of Call of Duty Modern Warfare, and now here's the re-release of Call of Duty Modern Warfare Remastered with like 12K graphics.
This is all very confusing. Let's move on.
Yes, please. I don't want to think about it anymore.
Here's our saddest piece of news today, Sean. Masahiro Sakurai, the auteur behind Smash Brothers, has a new book out, and according to Ayumi Tachibana on Smashboards, he says on page 27 of this book that while, quote, he knows some are serious, characters, quote, like Iron Man or Goku will not happen. He considers Smash for video game characters and does not see outside characters like these happening anytime soon. Thus, Sean, our beautiful dreams are dead.
I just want to say on the record, Masahiro Sakurai, you're a great man. You can go fuck yourself. One, what does characters like Iron Man and Goku even mean? No one has ever said characters like Iron Man and Goku and put Iron Man and Goku in the same bucket. No, you can't say that. And two, Goku, we have talked about this before, Goku has been in more video games than any other fucking character in your fucking Smash Brothers other than maybe Mario. And that's a fucking maybe.
Yeah.
Put Goku in your fucking video game, god damn it.
Unless there's someone else that's holding you up on that, it's not your fault if it's like Namkai Bandai is saying no.
I don't know, you make it happen, motherfucker. You're fucking Masahiro Sakurai. You can get shit done. Put fucking Goku in your fucking video game.
Let's move on to video games, Sean.
Okay,
so we're gonna talk about some video game stuff. I beat Cuphead this week.
Congratulations.
It is definitely my proudest gaming achievement because it's fucking hard. Because I was telling you last week about King Dice, Sean. Where you have to get a dice roll, do a mini-boss, do another dice roll. That was hard enough, but I beat it. I got an A rank on it. I was feeling pretty good. And then I kind of had forgotten that that's not the final boss. The final boss is the devil, who just is definitely, I think, the hardest of the main bosses, which he's the last boss. That makes sense. Mm-hmm. I did beat the devil, also with an A rank my first time. That was pretty good. Took a while, though. Took a couple days to beat the devil. But I wasn't done. I finished the game and I'm like, I'm feeling. I got an itchy trigger finger here for Cuphead. So I went back and got A ranks on every boss in the game, which is really hard. Did all of that. While this was during my main playthrough, on the run and gun levels, your highest rank is a P rank, and that's if you do the entire run and gun without firing your gun. I got P ranks on all of those. I got all the unlockables. The only thing I would have to do now is expert mode, which is basically all the bosses at like 2x speed, which is just insanely tough.
Fuck that.
So I've put it away for the moment, But I have over 35 hours in Cuphead. I have died over 1,500 times. I love this game to fucking death. I've already heard from at least one listener who is addicted to it now because of us, and I didn't know whether to say great or I'm sorry. But, man, Cuphead, I was bit by the difficult game bug hard on this one, Sean. And now I feel like when you talk about Dark Souls or something, I get it. Mm-hmm. Not necessarily I get Dark Souls, but I get the feelings you're talking about.
Yeah, because I think one of the reasons why I've never gone to Cuphead is I'm not a big platformer guy, so it's like I am just not as interested in that. But I think whatever genre it is that speaks to you, there is that core, like, hard game, like, fuck you, I did this thing, motherfucker. Like, that feeling can be sustained across any number of genres.
And just, like, one of my favorite things to do was going back and getting the A ranks, because it was, on one level, like, I could beat any of those bosses now. I knew how to do it. But now it was like you have to get 3 parries, you have to use 6 super moves, you have to, like, do this list of things for each of them to get the A rank. And, like, adding that back in was like an extra layer of challenge, but I was so much better equipped to do it than my first time through. And it was fun to me to see which ones did I just, like, I cleaned up at this was great, and which ones took me, like, a lot to, like, okay, whatever strategy I used last time does not work anymore with this. I've got to figure out something new. Because I also, like, there's a small but significant set of upgrades you get throughout the game that you can buy and customize. And especially if you're going for, like, the higher challenge things in that game, you realize how much each of those has a unique place in the game. The different mixes and matches you can do with them are all really interesting to, like, augment your strategies. It's just a fantastic game if you haven't played it. It's on Xbox, it's on Switch, it's on PC. I recommend the shit out of it. It's so good, but know what you're getting into.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So you talked about an old game, so I will also talk about an old game. So I'm continuing to play Mafia 3. That game is still really good. I spent some time last week kind of going through a little bit and looking up what more in detail what some of the critical reception was at the time, because I just remember, like, the reviews being very middling, but I didn't remember any of the content of it. And it is interesting to me to see how, like, in my opinion, a lot of the sort of mainstream video game critics just kind of missed it on that game, because they are very middling reviews, and it's the frustrating thing where, like, you read some of those video game reviews and there's just absolutely no engagement with, like, the core mechanics of the game at all, and it's just like a one sentence of, and there's shooting and there's driving, and it's like, but the shooting and the driving in Mafia 3 is really fucking good. And it's like, I get that, like, there are lots of games that are third-person shooters, there are lots of games that have driving in it, but there's something about the way that all the elements of Mafia 3 come together. It's so much, like, greater than the sum of its parts kind of thing, because all the gameplay elements are so expressive in their own right, and they create these, like, really, really rich moments where kind of everything about the setting and the vibe and kind of, like, the texture of the gameplay mechanics sort of meld together. And I had a really great example of this a couple of days ago, where I'm sort of in the last phase of the game, where I'm tackling the last 3 districts you have to finish before you get the boss, Sal Marcano, at the very end of the game. So I assume that's just what happens at the end of the game. So the last 3 districts you need to do are more involved, because you're tackling, like, people higher up, like, right next to him on sort of the chain of command in the Marcano gang. And so there are more steps inside of more mission types you need to go through to clear out a district. And so I was in the section of the map that is controlled by a group called the Southern Union, which is basically just the Ku Klux Klan. Which, to recap for people who don't remember much about Mafia 3, you play as Lincoln Clay, who is an African-American Vietnam vet who has come back to America, and when he comes back to America, the people in the black mob, who are basically like his family, get betrayed and murdered by the Italian mob, and so he's going and murdering all those motherfuckers. And it's one thing that's really great about the game is how empowered you feel as Lincoln Clay to enact the justice that society is not willing to enact, because since it's set in 1969, it's dealing with all the sort of racial issues that America was dealing with in 1969 that we're still dealing with today. And so you're hearing stuff about, like, Martin Luther King Jr. and, like, the fallout of his assassination on the radio and stuff like that when you're driving around in the game. So it's, like, very racially intense, but because you're going through and murdering all these white pieces of shit, it feels very satisfying. And so one thing that happened while I'm clearing out this district is I unlocked a new mission type by sort of taking out this informant and interrogating this informant. and found out that the racket in run by the Southern Union is involved in human trafficking. And so it's like, then it puts up 2 blips on my map that's like, oh, here are like these 2 missions, and once I clear out these 2 missions, I basically open a path. I've done enough damage to them to kind of take out the leader of this group. And so I go over to where the first one is, and kill a bunch of people, and go up and open up this door. And while I like had processed that, like, oh, this is like a human trafficking thing, I had not like gone through the, oh yeah, when I open up the door, here's a bunch of like half naked people, like black people, chained up to a wall, and it's like, and they have just enslaved, like kidnapped and enslaved all these people, and being like, oh, right, these are some evil fucking pieces of shit. And there's something about like that image that like I just like as a person I just was upset. I was like, because I was maybe going to go do some collectibles or something before I went and did the other one of these missions, because it's on the other side of the sort of the district. And I was like, no, I'm just going to beeline and go straight to those slaving motherfuckers and kill all of them and save these other people. And so I get back into my car, and it's in the middle of the like dead middle of the night in the game. Rain is pouring. I get into my car that's like this really nice souped up 1960s American muscle car, turn on the radio, and White Room by Cream starts playing, which is just a fucking killer song, because all the radio in this game, it's all 1960s music, so it's all amazing. And so the White Room by Cream, in the White Room, boom, 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 boom,
that's so
boom,
good.
Boom. It's a great song, and that starts playing. And so then I start driving up through these like curving mountain roads in the middle of the night, rain pouring down, that song playing. I'm like screeching around corners, just driving at like 100 miles an hour. And the driving model in the game is already really slippery, especially because the muscle car is so weighted in the back that like the back kicks out really far and skids really nicely. But it becomes even more squirrely in the rain, because it's a, you know, it's the driving model in the game is sort of more complicated than it typically is for this kind of game. And there's just this sense of so much weight and just like ferocity in how the car is turning and squealing as I'm going up this mountain road. And then I start driving up to where their base is, and I see there's like a guy like standing behind this gate, and I just gun it, jump out of my car. And so now White Room by Cream is still playing, but it's playing through the radio of the car, then now barrels through the fence, fucking crutches that dude. I stand up, I pull out this like 15 round semi-automatic pistol I have, because this game is like the most John Wick ass game ever, in that the pistol is one of the best weapons in the game, and you just fucking mow people down. And so I just run up there and basically just fire from the hip, just riddle these fucking slaving Ku Klux Klan, like they're all wearing hoods and shit motherfuckers, and just they're the enemies that die in like 2 or 3 shots, and I'm hitting them with like 8 bullets, and they're just falling over. I take out a submachine gun and just blast all of them, all while White Room is still playing from my car, and just clear through that whole hideout. I don't even think I get shot once. Just waylace to all of them, go up, like open up the sort of the room, free all the people, and I start walking out to go back to my car, very satisfied. And then hear like one of the guys on the ground just moaning like, oh god, and I walk over, pull out my pistol, and just shoot him in the back of the head, and get in and walk and drive away. And it was the most cinematic shit I've ever done in the game. And all of it was just all the systems and like the weather system and the music and the gameplay mechanics being as sort of ferocious as they are, all those things coming together to create this like really magical gameplay experience. And that does not happen all the time playing Mafia 3, but when it does happen, that game fucking kicks ass.
You know, okay, so I haven't played this game, but listening to you talk about it, tell me if you agree with this. It sounds like if this game had come out like a couple years later, like where we are now, like middle of the Trump administration, the KKK is just out in the fucking streets. It sounds like there would be a different kind of resonance to this, and also if we were a few more years away from like GTA 5.
I think so, yeah. I think because the game originally came out in 2016, and so it because if I had played it when it came out, I'm not sure if I would have liked it as much. Partially because I don't think I would have been doing what I'm doing now, which is playing it more piecemeal and doing like hour to 2 hour long sessions, and kind of that's it. And I'm not putting in like a huge like here's like 6 hours of me sitting down playing this game on the weekend or something. And so that definitely helps. And so I can see why reviewers obviously were not in the situation where that was something they could do. So I get that would have affected the experience. But yeah, I think part of it is that like people were maybe not totally engaging with some of what the game was doing with the setting and its ideas, because it's so much richer than something like a Grand Theft Auto 5, both in terms of just the mechanical design. It's so much better. The gunplay and the driving is so much more fun than GTA 5, but also all the narrative detail and the feeling of the setting feels much more thoughtful than GTA 5, and is a little bit more in line with what GTA 4 was going at for. But I think Mafia 3 is much more successful because it's not held back by having to have any satire elements in it at all. It's not heightened. It is heightened, not in a satirical way. It's heightened in a like 1960s, 70s exploitation movie, like revenge flick kind of way. And it kind of pushes that violence and that intensity meter up past the point of that's like realism. But that's part of what makes the game so fun. So Mafia 3, again, if people have had PS Plus earlier this year, like late last year, you have this game. So I would recommend at least checking it out because I'm having a hell of a fucking time with this game.
I'm waiting for my PS Plus subscription to result in a good game, but it hasn't happened yet. All right. I played this week Team Sonic Racing.
Awesome.
So this game, I had totally forgotten this came out because this was announced last year. It was going to come out like November. They delayed it like 6 or 7 months, which is a pretty big video game delay. And then I had kind of forgotten about it. Last week, reviews started coming out, and they were really good. And I thought, oh, you know what? I love kart racers. I love Mario Kart. I love Sonic when it's good. And I have affection for it even when it's bad sometimes. Yeah. And then I checked the price, and this is only a $40 game. And I'm like, match made in heaven. I'll play that. And it's on Switch, and Switch is the only console I have with me right now. My Xbox 360 is at my house, but it does not play new games. Yeah. For obvious reasons.
You could play Sonic and Sega All-Stars Racing Transformed on the 360.
Well, that's the thing. So there are 2 other Sonic racing games. Well, there's also Sonic R back in the day. Let's not forget Sonic R. There are 2 other Sonic kart racers.
Yeah, there you go.
There's Sega and Sonic All-Stars Racing Transformed, and then there's the other one just All-Stars Racing.
I think so.
Yeah, and I've tried both of those. One was on PS Plus on Vita, and one I had on my iPhone for free. And neither of those were very good. I also know those were not like the optimal versions of those games. Yeah. But this sounded really good. It looked cool. I got it on Switch. Again, only $40, which is nice because it's a $60 game. They're being nice pricing it at $40. It's as feature rich as something like a Mario Kart 8, I'd say. But it's really good. Like, this is if you have wanted a Sonic racing game that is comparable to Mario Kart, this is it. It is not identical to Mario Kart, but it's you know the basics. There are 12 players, you race, there's tracks, there's 3 laps, all of that is there. There's items, all of that sort of thing. They've added a new mechanic. Why it's called Team Sonic Racing is you can do individual races, but in the main story mode and in the main racing mode, you race in teams of 3. The teams are... They're either just the exact 3-person teams from Sonic Heroes way back in the day. So you've got Team Dark, you've got Team Sonic, you've got the Amy's team is the same, except instead of Cream the Rabbit, you have the Chow are there, and there's all these Chow in a cart together, which I like.
What happened to Cream the Rabbit? What did they do?
I don't know what they did to Cream the Rabbit. And then there's kind of a rejects team, which is Silver from Sonic 06. Blaze the cat, who's just a cool cat. I think she's from Sonic Rush.
Yeah, she's from Rush.
Yeah, and then the alligator guy. What's his name?
Vector.
Vector, yeah, who is from Team Chaotix. Yep. You don't have.
So there's no Team Chaotix. No. Charmy the Bee and SBO just got fucked on this one.
Yeah. They do some in the story mode. They have a good line about that at some point. But yes, and then there is a team with Eggman, Metal Sonic, and I think the villain from Sonic Colors, Zorak or something. I don't know that one. Yeah, I don't either. But anyway, so you've got all those teams. The team racing mechanics are like, obviously it pools your points at the end to see who won. But there's also things like, if you are behind a team member, you can get in their drift trail and do a slingshot move. You can, when you get an item, you can just send it to another team member if you don't need it, and that's kind of neat. Or you can request an item from another teammate. There's all these little things you can do as a team. There are 20 racetracks in the game, and so far I've liked all of them a lot. They're really creative. They're all built around different Sonic stages. The music in this game is fucking phenomenal. It's my favorite thing about it is that it is music from all over the Sonic series, but especially it's a lot of like the adventure era music. So Sonic Adventure 1 and 2, Heroes, you get a lot of stuff like that, rearranged, re-recorded. There's like a level that's based on the casino from Sonic Heroes that has that casino theme, and I love that casino theme from Sonic Heroes. So all of that is fun. There is a story mode. It's called Adventure Mode. And in that, it's very much reminds me of like one of the Persona 4 dancing games, or one of the Persona dancing games, where it's like a visual novel with the main gameplay is dancing. The visual novel, there is less of it in this than there is in a Persona game.
Okay, yeah.
But it is like before each race, characters talk a little bit, and there's sort of a story. The villain who, well, I don't know if he's the villain yet, actually, but the guy who sets up the races and has all the characters racing is this little tanuki named Dodonpa, which makes me laugh, because it's all the English Sonic voice actors saying Dodonpa over and over again, which is funny. And then Eggman gets involved. There's all this stuff with that. It's the current Sonic Boom voice cast, so I think this is the best cast Sonic has ever had. So all of that's good. It's a fun little story. Like, it's not great or deep or anything, but it's exactly what you would want out of this. And also the story mode just gives structure to everything, because it, like, will give you races. The races have certain challenges associated with them. There are also just some challenge races. There's ones where you have to just go around the track solo and collect a certain number of rings, or you have to hit some targets, or do some... I find all of these, they're very challenging, but they're very fun, and they provide a good amount of variety. So, like, you put all that together, it's a great package, and then I think the racing mechanics themselves are really good. It's a little more... I don't know how to describe it. I'm thinking of it almost as like a little more arcadey than Mario Kart, because it just feels a little more like... The movement of it all feels a little more impactful and like the kind of thing I would just feel like if I were in an arcade with a wheel or something. Mm-hmm. But I like it a lot. It plays very well. It you know, all the drifting mechanics and everything work well. I like there's each racer has a type associated with it, and there's 3 types overall, and they have different strengths and weaknesses, and those are fun to figure out. The character roster is really good. You know, the line I've kind of had about it in my head is that if you have any love for the 3D Sonic era, and I know it's been mostly rough, but there's still a way to have love for it.
Yeah.
This game celebrates everything that's genuinely good about that era of Sonic. Like, if you came into Sonic like I did in 99 or 2000 and got into it with Sonic Adventure 1 and 2, and then Heroes, and then the Sonic Advance games, and Sonic Rush, there's so much love for that era that I think has been often neglected lately in the rush to, like, well, we fucked up these 3D games, so we're just going to remake the Genesis ones to infinity. That worked out very well with Sonic Mania.
Yeah.
But I don't want that to be Sonic forever, because it's like, 3D isn't inherently the problem, guys. Bad game design is the problem.
Yeah.
So, like, if you like having Sonic's extended cast again, I do. I like those characters in certain doses, and they're fun to have here. And if you like some of that, the you know, the cheesy rock music that you get, like Crush 40 came back to do new songs for this. They're the people who did. Yeah. Like, it's fun. It's a really good celebration of that. It's a really tight racer. It plays well. It's fun to have a good kart racer that is not Mario Kart, because Mario Kart is kind of its own genre, and everyone who tries to do it does it poorly. And it's fun to have someone else do that and have the Sonic characters, because the Sonic characters also have a little more personality and attitude than Yoshi or something, as much as I love Yoshi. So it's fun to, like, race with Rouge the Bat, and she's saying weirdly seductive things in the track. You know, it's fun stuff, and I really like this game. $40, I think it's kind of a steal. It's a good deal for that, and you know, it's good so far. I'm having fun with it.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, you talked about a new game. Now I'm going to talk about a game so new, Jonathan, that you can't even play it, because it's time to take a trip down, not to Sean's Beta Corner. We have to go to a secret, undisclosed, off-site location. A secret bunker I have prepared, because I'm not talking about no run-of-the-mill fucking beta. This isn't something you can just go onto a store and just get this. I was sent a top secret email from PlayStation with a code for the alpha for Nioh II.
It's Sean's Alpha Dungeon.
Welcome to the Alpha Dungeon. I'm Sean, and this is my Alpha Dungeon.
Strap yourselves in.
Yeah, strap yourselves in. We're going to have a hell of a time. So I didn't know that this is going to be a thing. There's a closed alpha for Nioh II, one of my favorite games of 2017. For people who don't remember, this is Nioh spelled Nioh, not like Neo from The Matrix. We'll talk about him later. But so it's basically... Now that they've made now that Sekiro is a thing, just saying it's like Samurai Dark Souls is not a good way to describe this game anymore. But it's made by Team Ninja from Koei Tecmo, and it's a Dark Souls-esque game set in the Warring States period of Japan, but with all like the mythological elements thrown in there as well. And it's sort of its main selling point is that the combat is much more complex and technical There are lots of different weapons. Each weapon has 3 different stances, low, medium, and high, with different attacks associated with each stance, and then the weapons also have pretty extensive skill trees that unlock different combos, different counters and moves you can do. So it's a Dark Souls type of game with like the combat ratcheted up to like not 11 but like 12. And I had a huge amount of fun with Nioh from 2017. So Nioh 2, they've done a closed alpha. You can only access it, as far as I know, if you get emailed a code. I didn't even specifically sign up for it. I suspect that maybe because they know that I played Nioh, I think that maybe that's how I'm sort of automatically was part of the pool for the alpha, because I also played the alpha and the beta of the original Nioh, because they did multiple rounds of pre-release stuff for that game as well, and I played all of those, and those were really cool. So the alpha for Nioh 2, I haven't played a huge amount of it, partially because I know I'm just going to get this game, and because Nioh 2 is very fun, just like Nioh 1 was, and so I kind of don't want to kind of mine the alpha for all of the content, because the game's just inherently not as fun when you know you're not building up a character and locking skills that you're going to be able to keep and move forward with. So I've mostly just kind of been sampling it to see what's new so I can talk about it on the podcast and kind of see what they're doing with the game. So point number 1 that's really interesting: you are not playing as William, who was the main character from the first game. Because the first game you played as an Irishman named William, who's like sort of very loosely based on an actual historical figure that came over and was involved in the Warring States stuff. He survives the events of the original Nioh, but is not the protagonist of this game. Instead, you create your own character. The options are very limited in the alpha, but you can see, because you can basically only pick from a couple of presets, but you can see that there's a lot of different shit you could do to customize your hair and facial hair and face and all that kind of stuff. You can play as a male or a female character, which is cool. So I made a dope female samurai lady with a cool ponytail. And that is probably the direction I'm going to go with in the full game as well, because there's something cool about like lady samurai people just fucking up demons. So there's a character creator, and then I think that there are multiple areas in the alpha, but I've only kind of played through the first one you get dumped into. And the core of the game is very, very similar to the original Nioh. Like down to, if you pick some of the existing weapons from the original Nioh that have come over, like the katana or the spear, your weapon sets are mostly identical. Obviously, I haven't seen all the skill trees, so I don't know if there are like other moves that you unlock later that are very different and change the way those weapons work. But essentially, the core of the game is what the original Nioh was. They've just added a lot of stuff on top of it. So there are a lot of different enemy types. There are a lot of new demons. Presumably, there's going to be even more new weapons in the full game. In this alpha, you get a limited selection of the katana and the spear, which were from the original game. The odachi, which is basically a giant sword, which was only in the DLC of the original Nioh. And then there's one new weapon type in the alpha, which are these, they call them the hatchets, but they're basically dual axes that are really cool, because all their moves revolve around you like basically doing different throwing attacks. And so I've mostly been using those hatchets because they're the new weapons. And the katana and the spear and the odachi were actually the main weapons I used in the original Nioh. So There's cool. I can see how these weapons have carried over. But the hatchets are really fun. The game still does the thing where you can sheath your weapon, and if you have a bunch of blood on your weapon, they do a different animation to like fling the blood off. And with the hatchets, it's very cool because you do this like full spin and kind of flip them around and put them in kind of reverse in the holsters at the side of the character. It's a very cool thing. Nioh is still fucking awesome. But the main new stuff actually revolves around, they've added different weapon types that are corrupted weapons and pure weapons. And then sort of associated with that, they have also kind of expanded out the demon thing. So in the original Nioh, there were a lot of different yokai or demons running around, which are just sort of supernatural enemies that you had to use different tactics to defeat. In Nioh 2, they're leaning into this sort of thing where your character seems to have some sort of connection to the yokai. And so your special move in the game, which in the original Nioh was just like a kind of, depending on which guardian spirit you had unlocked, you would have a special move that would sort of make your sword a giant flame sword, or it's a giant lightning sword. They would have different elemental effects. Now, instead, you basically turn into a giant demon version of your character, and depending on which guardian spirit you pick, it's a different version of a demon. And so that has kind of shifted. But then also you have two new attacks that you can trigger by either holding down R2 and either pressing triangle or I think square. And these are attacks that you unlock by defeating demons, and then you get these cores by defeating them, and then you can slot them in basically like any other piece of equipment into this attack slot. And you basically have this one attack where you transform into that demon and do one of their like signature moves. So as an example, one of the new demon monsters in Nioh 2 is the Ippon Datara, which you might know if you've played Persona because it's one of the Personas, or the demons in the Persona games. And he's basically like this big dude with like one big leg and a huge club. And so when you defeat him in the beta or in the alpha, you get this soul core, and then when you take that back to your shrine, you kind of cleanse it, and then you can equip it. And so then when you equip it and you have like enough of your meter, your like demon meter or whatever it is, if you hold down R2 and press triangle, then you transform into the Ippon Datara, flip in the air, and slam the club down like one of his signature attacks. And so there are a couple of different demons that you find in the game, or in the alpha, that basically all of them, even like little tiny ones, like there's these little kid monsters called Gakis, that you can unlock one of their attacks. And so they're both like big monsters and little monsters all have them. And that's seems to be the main direction they're moving in, is keeping the core the same, but kind of expanding on some of the more sort of interesting and obscure elements of the original Nioh that they didn't fully utilize the first time, which is kind of what the demons felt like. Which is like there are these cool things that exist in the world, but your character is not really directly involved with them much. Now it's this like you are some sort of like half demon samurai person. Like there's not a lot of narrative setup, so I don't know what all the narrative justification for it is yet, but that's sort of where they're expanding out the game. So Nioh 2 seems really cool. If you like check your email if you played the first game and maybe you have a code. Again, I don't know what all the specifications for how you get that sent out, but I spent a couple of hours with it and had a pretty fun time throwing axes at ogres and fucking just cutting. So like still the most fun is to fight bandits and just fuck their shit up, and like there's a lot of good dismemberment where their heads fly off and you flick the blood off and put your axes in their holster and just go, it's great, now I'm going to go murder that thing.
Nice. More excited for this game now?
Yes, yeah, because it was like a question mark of what does Nioh 2 look like.
It sounds like it's honestly got more new stuff in it than I thought it would.
Yeah, which is how I feel. Like I thought that it was going to be like, here's going to be like 3 or 4 new weapons and some new enemies, and them adding in all this like demon stuff, and you can have like the corruption and purity thing on your weapons is you can have magic weapons that are either basically demon weapons or they'll call them angels, but like an angel kind of weapon that have different effects based on which enemy you use them on, and as you use them, they build up that effect and become more powerful over time. So they're like, again, it's that kind of sequel where they're not trying to reinvent what the game is. They're just trying to sort of build out from that core. And since the core combat of Nioh is so intensely satisfying, building out from that core is basically what I want from a sequel from that game.
Awesome. You want to talk about some TV stuff?
Let's talk about some TV stuff, Jonathan.
All right. I think our only TV stuff this week is Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
Which is weird because I have finished Game of Thrones, and I'm sad over here. And you've just started Game of Thrones. I'll talk about the finale in a minute. I'll say this. It feels weirdly muted. Like, the finale happened. People talked about it a little bit. It's only been a week since it aired. Not even actually a week in terms of hours now. It's 3:30 Sunday as we're talking. Like... But people aren't really talking about it. I don't know if you felt this either. It just kind of, it came, it went. Everyone was sort of like, oh, okay.
Yeah, it seemed very intense in that moment when I looked on Twitter, like as the finale was ending. It's like, oh my god, there's a lot of people tweeting about this. And then after that, it was like even like the other teachers at my school were not really talking about it. That I heard enough that I know everything that happens in it. But it wasn't like there wasn't the impassioned conversation that happened after the penultimate episode where people just like, no, there's no way that character's dead because that would be a bad way for that. And just like like this hour-long conversation while I was grading papers. It was more like a 5 to 10 minute, like, oh, did you see that episode? It's like, oh, okay, I guess that's what happened.
Which I feel like is kind of the worst thing you can say about it in terms of like, it's the end of this, like, epochal show in, like, American, like, cultural history, and it went out on such a fucking whimper. But we'll talk about that in a second, Sean. You've watched 5 episodes from the beginning. I don't know, what do you think about it so far? I'm very curious.
I like it. I'm not, like, head over heels in love with it necessarily. I think it's,
and I don't think anyone would be after 5 episodes.
Yeah, like it's a very slow show, which is something I have to get used to. Of like, there are at this point where I am, there are basically 3 ongoing stories. The main one is mostly all the stuff with Ned Stark. He's starting to get into some shit where, like, okay, I now see how this guy's going to die. Like, I can definitely see why this fucking idiot is going to get himself killed. Because I love him, but he's a big fucking idiot. So, like, that seems to be the main thing, is all him with Robert Baratheon and the Lannisters and the King's Landing. And then you have all the stuff with Daenerys Targaryen in the extremely racist side of the show with the Dothraki, which I'm going to want to talk about that. And then you have...
It gets worse.
Yeah, and then you have Jon Snow, who's just doing nothing. Every time they cut back to him, like, I was pretty into his side of shit when he's going to the wall, and then it's just like he's been at the wall for like 2 episodes and nothing has happened with him. It's like...
You're going to have to wait until season 3.
Okay, great. It's just like... Well, because it is like every time they cut to him, like, oh, cool, I want to see what's going to happen with the zombies. And then it's like, oh, nothing. Okay, cool. Why did you cut to him? I don't know. So it's a very, very slow fucking show because it's trying to juggle a lot of stuff. And I kind of feel myself sort of just waiting for the Game of Thrones to happen when, like, I want to see some people get fucking killed, and I want to see it sort of start to take, because it's weird because it's very slow, but it doesn't really go in depth with any of the individual elements because it's dealing with so much set building right now. Because I could see a different version of this story of basically having most of the material in episode 1 through 5 in basically one episode of television. Obviously, it would be extremely cut down, but in terms of like plot critical things that have happened that have like moved what feels like a plot forward in a direction, there's surprisingly little because there's so many characters you have to hit on and jump between very quickly that no individual element feels like it has any particular depth to it at this point, like halfway through season 1.
I'm really curious what you're going to think of the rest of the show because you're talking about the part that has the absolute least amount of story.
Okay,
like it gets so much big, but like I'm sitting here thinking like, oh, I long for the days when Game of Thrones was slow and took its time, and you had conversations with characters, and you just got to like luxuriate in these moments.
Although I think one thing which I would say is that it doesn't feel like there are that many conversations with characters because while it is slow not because it feels like it's spending its time luxuriating in one thing, but because it has so many things it needs to talk about that has to jump between them very quickly.
Well, and it's kind of an issue throughout the show is that you know, one episode might only get one scene with every character once you get into seasons 2 and 3, and so I'm really curious where it goes. You know, other people have said, I've said this before, season 1 is sort of like the prologue because
that's what it feels like.
It's Ned Stark's beheading, which I did not.
Yeah, I know that happens. Yeah,
that is the incident that kicks off the plot of Game of Thrones, like the war that begins after that. So like the real like plot that starts is after that, and I think that's fine as a setup, and I actually look back very fondly on season 1 now because it is kind of a self-contained story unit. But it feels like something that works better as a novel thing than as a TV show. Like there's something very frustrating about watching a TV show. I get it.
That like feels like it's like, because again, most TV stuff I watch is anime, and even Vodums, which was a very slow-paced fucking anime, was like each episode is 20 minutes.
Yeah.
And if you have one episode that nothing much happens in, like it was just 20 minutes. If you have one episode of Game of Thrones where it feels like I'm not sure that much. If I like think about what are the things that just happened in the past 50 minutes of television I watched, there kind of wasn't that much. That's a kind of a very frustrating pace to move at.
Yeah, I think you'll like the last half of the season. There's a lot of really good stuff with like every story really cooks near the end of that first season. And let's use the Daenerys thing to transition into the finale because the whole Daenerys side of the show has always been questionable in its racial politics, and it is in the books in a very different way, in part because it's not visualized for us. Yeah, but I guess I want to hear your thoughts, though, for a second.
It's bad. Like that, I mean, it's okay. I should say, the racial stuff is very bad, but on the other hand, that is the side of the show I'm most interested in because Daenerys feels like she's the character that has the most growth and has, like, in these 5 episodes, has by far had the most, like, interesting things about her.
Yeah.
Compared to, like, I like Ned Stark, but I mostly like Ned Stark because it's Sean Bean playing him and because he's a just a fucking doofus. Like, God, I can't wait till he just gets his dumbass fucking killed. But then again, like characters like Jon Snow kind of aren't doing anything. I like Tyrion, but that's mostly a performance thing, and like the character stuff has so far been very, very thin. With everyone else, Daenerys, every time we cut to her, it's like, oh, she's moving forward in her story, and like lots of changes happen with her very quickly. So in terms of like the narrative content, I'm enjoying every time we cut to Daenerys. I'm like, yes, awesome. I want to see what's happening with this lady. And then I'm very quickly confronted with man, I can't believe that this show came out in 2011 because this shit feels like King Kong, like Skull Island. It's so colonialist in its perspective that it's like, oh, now we go and cut to like the crazy brown people that go around and rape and murder everybody, and that's like their entire culture is just raping and murdering people. And it's somewhat excusable in the first episode because you see it only from Daenerys' perspective, and so I could see that being like, she only can see this side of these people. But you very quickly lose that excuse when after between episodes or between scenes, like basically like months of time can pass. And so like she has been, I assume she must have been with the Dothraki for like 6 or 7 months or something at this point. That because she's like pregnant now, and she's been pregnant enough to like kind of show a little bit, and she would have been there a while to get her pregnant. So she's been there long enough that she's learning their language and everything. But still, the only thing we see of the Dothraki people is that they rape and murder. And it's like all the men are just warriors that rape and murder, and then all the women are either like basically raped or they are handmaidens for Daenerys. And that's the only thing you see. And that's not true of any of the other cultures that the show represents. Anytime you cut to stuff going on in King's Landing, anytime you cut to things going on in the North, you see a wide range of different kinds of people that all have different kinds of jobs and different kinds of skills and different kinds of interests. And there's something very frustrating about having a show that feels like it's supposed to be very interested in the world building and the detail of that world building. And, like your opening of the show every single time is like 90 seconds of this very luxurious pan around of this map, and here's everything. It's like, it's kind of what they're trying to say. It's like this sort of pseudo-historical quality of the show. And then you cut to the brown people that don't have any of that shit to them, which is like the worst instincts of this kind of fiction. But instead of it being like Tolkien that has questionable race stuff, but it's all on the edges and he never really like kind of focuses on it, here it's like big lens on the heavy colonialist sort of like perspective we have on the foreigners.
It gets worse.
Great.
It gets so much worse. Because like, it is, I think, the thing that gets debated about most, probably in Martin's books, is that the Dothraki probably are the least developed of the cultures. Now, the books are also, you're literally locked in Dany's point of view, so it's a little different. There's not the omniscience of television,
Yeah.
But also, like, the books much more quickly start to confront, like, the white saviorness of it all, too, with her, which you haven't even really gotten to yet.
Yeah, like, I've gotten a little bit of those hints of, like, oh, she's, like, the white lady who comes here and like, but she is somehow becomes like the best Khaleesi ever in like 3 months. Yeah.
The show does that just all completely unironically until the episode where she decides to burn down King's Landing 2 episodes from the end. And that's part of why people hated that episode, is that the show never really put any irony or like question marks on that for Daenerys. But in the show, Sean, the series finale of Game of Thrones that aired this week, it was called The Iron Throne, and I don't really know why. It's a bad title for the finale. We'll get into that later. It's the least of the episode's problems, but whatever. Is the for one, the Dothraki, who we saw all die in episode 3 this season, have just miraculously respawned, and they're all there again. And it's very like, the worst thing is what they've done with. So there's the Dothraki, and then another group she eventually aligns with herself with are the Unsullied, which are another group of brown people who are soldiers from Essos. Right. And at this point in the last 2 episodes, Grey Worm, who is the character who is one of the Unsullied captains, who is like the main character we know from that group, and he is one of 2 black people in the main cast in the history of Game of Thrones. The other one was fridged 3 weeks ago and had her head cut off. So Grey Worm and Daenerys could be angry. Grey Worm is now just a savage killer. Like, we just see him just like indiscriminately murdering people in the previous episode, and then the finale he's just lining up a bunch of Lannister soldiers and like slitting their throats. and stuff. And so yeah, he's just very violent. She's got it's the finale is Daenerys walks out on the steps of the castle, and all the Unsullied and all the Dothraki are there, and they're partying, and the Dothraki are like running around in their circles and bowing down to this white lady who saved them all, and she's promising to let them go pillage more and everything. And it's just like the show. I don't know where George R. R. Martin is headed with all of it. I think he has more sensitivity to all these things and is aware of their trope quality that needs to be questioned,
Yeah.
Because he's done it with every other trope. But, like, the show just, like, even though Daenerys dies in this last episode in the finale for her actions, like, I just don't think the show ever really understood the significance of a white lady, in some cases, like in the season 3 finale, literally being held up by a sea of black hands. And they're all sort of led to ruin by her. And that, like, yeah, she dies because of it, but the show never really knew how to question that. It was just like, it's a cool visual, a bunch of people on horses,
Mm-hmm.
And it's one of the many frustrations of the finale. But, like, boy, there's a scene early in the finale where Grey Worm is just indiscriminately killing people, and Jon Snow tries to stop him, and it's like, they dropped the ball so fucking hard on this. They just didn't know what to do. And it's that coupled with the bigger problem with the finale for me is that Game of Thrones is a show, as you've already seen 5 episodes in, that has a lot of cool women characters played by really good actresses who are often, in the early days at least, pretty well written. Like, as you said, Dany's a really interesting character. She grows a lot. I would love someone to do an analysis of lines given to women in the finale versus lines given to men in the finale, because I bet it's a split of roughly like 10%, 90%. Like, there are almost no speaking roles for women in the end. Women most of them are dead, and most of them went crazy.
Yeah, it does seem like they did kill off most of the women characters I know. I think the only one I know that I've met that I know for sure is still alive is Sansa at the end.
And Arya. But yeah, Arya does.
Oh yeah, and Arya,
Yeah, so Arya, and that's true.
But Arya's but she's like a boy lady.
Yeah.
Like, she seems like she's just like not interested in the lady part at all.
No.
She just wants to stab shit, which I'm into.
Which is probably why Arya was one of the only people this team could write well, because she was very masculinized.
Yeah, because I will say right now, the shit they're doing with fucking Sansa in where I'm at in season 1 of Game of Thrones is fucking intolerable. It's the worst bit of writing in the whole show. I cannot believe anything that comes out of that character's mouth, because it's the most ridiculous cliche, like Valley Girl teenager somehow became a princess bullshit I've ever heard in my life.
She gets better.
Oh god, so far it's not good.
I know. Anyway, yeah, so, like, because this finale is Cersei's already dead, and Cersei was just robbed of all interiority. She goes crazy in season 7, and then in season 8, she has maybe 5 lines across the whole season. They had fucking Lena Headey giving a great performance. You've already seen that she's great.
She's good. Yeah.
And she's barely in season 8. She just stands on a balcony and drinks some wine, and then she dies. And so she's dead, bitches be crazy. Then you've got Dany, who just resolutely denied any interiority. Dany has a lot of interiority over the course of the show until you hit season 8, and we need to get to, hey, bitches be crazy, right? And so now we don't ever get to see inside Dany's head. There's like half of the finale is men, Tyrion and Jon primarily, talking about Dany, but we never get to go have a scene with Dany where we see, like, okay, she killed a lot of people. What's on her mind, though? Like, that's not enough to know who this character we followed for 8 years is at. We never get to find out, because we just, like, in the episode where she murders all the people, episode 5 of this year, she's not in the episode. The dragon's in the episode, but she's up on its back. There's a CGI Emilia Clarke up there, but we barely see her. So, like, that's all gone, and then all you're left with is Arya, who has no role in the plot anymore. You could cut literally every scene with Arya out of episodes 4, 5, and 6 of the end of season 8, and you would not know she was gone. She has no role in the plot. She's done. And then Sansa, who is a great character at this point and should have a lot more to say. And Peter Dinklage has roughly 50 different speeches in the Game of Thrones finale. They just give, it's like anytime something needs to be wrapped up, they're like, give Peter Dinklage a speech. It's like, yes, Peter Dinklage is very good at giving a speech, but there's specifically one speech in this episode where Tyrion, like, says who should be king, that I'm like, that should be Sansa's. Like, that why is this Tyrion's? Sansa is right there. She's the one who's had the arc for this to be her speech. Like, it makes no fucking sense. So you get to this episode where all you've got left really is Arya, Sansa, and Brienne. I forgot. Brienne of Tarth, who you haven't met yet.
No.
But Brienne of Tarth, who they fucked up so badly over the course of this show. Brienne of Tarth's ending, this to me defines Game of Thrones. especially near the end, is Brienne's last scene is Jamie, who was the character who Brienne had a lot of interactions with. They both made each other better, and then in episode 5 they made the horrendous fucking decision to put them in a relationship and have them fuck, and then 20 minutes later in the same episode Jamie decides to leave to go find his sister, and Brienne's like, oh, boo-hoo-hoo, my boyfriend left, which is not who Brienne is. And the last scene of Brienne in this show, she sits down in the book, there's a big history book that records all the people in the Kingsguard, and she gets to Jaime Lannister's page, and this had been like a running plot a little bit, is that Jaime's didn't know what his page was going to read, and she writes Jaime's biography. So the end of Brienne of Tarth, one of the best and most powerful women in the show, her ending is writing about her dead boyfriend in a book.
In A Song of Ice and Fire, right? I've seen that.
That's a different book, but yes, they do that.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, because I saw that picture going out on Twitter. I'm like, that's fucking great. That's perfect.
It's really bad, yes. And then there's a later scene where Sam comes in with like, I've written a book, guys. And
wait.
He says,
is it the same Sam that he survives the whole show?
He is, honestly, Sean, very similar to Sam from Lord of the Rings in that you do not know how important he's going to be, and he is the heart and fucking soul of the show.
I thought when they introduced him that they were going to murder him by like the end of the first season as like a like Sam from Lord of the Rings kind of thing. Like hey, we have our dopey overweight dude. No. Let's do something different with him to be like, we're different than Tolkien.
No, I honestly think Sam in the books and the show is George R. R. Martin's like homage to Tolkien in some ways, because he's very much like Sam of Lord of the Rings.
Interesting.
Although he has less to do in the end of the show, but I don't know about the books. So anyway, Sam comes in. I've written a book, and it's A Song of Ice and Fire, and it's a really, really bad joke and doesn't work. You only get away with that if you're J.R.R. Tolkien and you've built an entire fake language and a fake
and then you call the book The Red Book of Westmarch, and it's not. It's fucking Bilbo doesn't hand Frodo the Lord of the Rings, and Frodo sits down and is like, well, time to write my chapters in The Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, no, it's dumb. Anyway, but yeah, I mean, that to me is the biggest disappointment of this finale, is that like it didn't just drop the ball on its female characters. It went in one of two directions, which was utter and pure erasure, as with Brienne, Arya, and Sansa. And yes, Sansa gets to be Queen of the North. Sansa also has maybe 3 lines in this episode. So if you think that's enough, I don't know what to tell you. So utter and complete erasure, or, hey, bitches be crazy, am I right? And it's like, I've said this before, I think the ultimate turn of Dany into like a war criminal is a potential avenue you could go down in this story and make it really good. Like, George R. R. Martin, actually, I was reminded of this, has already started that. In Book 5, there are chapters where Dany is starting to lose it a little bit, and it's really well done. But in the show, it's just, Dany is a hero, and I don't care how many fucking times they said the words Queen of the Ashes. They did 0 character work to get her there. The show, unironically, loved Dany, until the point where it's like, bitches be crazy, am I right?
I mean, yeah, because again, I will say, obviously this is just my perspective from the very, very beginning of the show, but so far, Daenerys Targaryen is the character that the show wants you to latch onto.
Yes.
Like she's the character that they want you to root for, and there's no irony in it right now. There's no sense of we're playing with like a weird white savior-y Lawrence of Arabia kind of thing. It's like Daenerys is fucking cool, and her brother sucks, and Khal Drogo's cool, but like not as cool as Daenerys, because she's cool.
Yeah, this is what I want you to watch for, Sean, as you watch through the show. And I want you to give us reports on this. Uh-huh. Tell me if you can find a scene where you genuinely think they're building up to what you know Dany is going to become.
Yeah, to have her become like a villainous force.
And not what the show makes you feel. What does the show intend this? Because there are scenes where I've seen people be like, well, I found that scene where she's being lifted up by all the black hands kind of like, disturbing because it's this way. And like, did the show think that though? Because the show, the way that scene is shot and framed and scored and acted, it is triumphant, and it is Dany as a hero, and she's building a new world movement and all this stuff. That's the question. Is the show aware of it? It's not what are you extra textually reading into it. I don't really care about that if we're talking about did they do their job or not, right? Because you can headcanon whatever the fuck you want. But I'm talking about did the show do it?
Yeah, I mean, my headcanon is that Ned Stark is just Boromir, and that Boromir didn't actually die at the end of Fellowship of the Ring, but he actually, his consciousness fell through a portal. And it's basically, you know how there's this trend in modern anime where it's called isekai, or like alternate world, where someone is transported to another dimension, and it's like, oh, I'm like a boy from Japan, but now all of a sudden I'm in Dragon Quest and I'm super cool. It's basically that with Boromir, but instead of him being teleported to a different kind of world, he's basically teleported to the exact same world, and he gets killed again because he's still a big dumb idiot.
Yes. But yeah, and just so this finale also is just weirdly structured. I think the first, like, this is the thing. I thought this was about as good as the finale could be, given how bad the season had been. Mm-hmm. So low praise, I don't know, but like, there's good scenes. Peter Dinklage is really good in this episode. I think Kit Harington's good for what they give him to do. But it's like they dispense with Danny so fast. Like it's Danny becomes a war criminal in the previous episode. The next episode, she's dead 30 minutes in. Like,
yeah, like that. So that seems like that's by far the other extreme of the pacing. Yes. What I'm saying of like, I've watched 5 episodes and I feel like 3 major plot events have happened, and it sounds like you're just like like 500 major plot events happened like magically in the span of 10 minutes.
Yeah, like these 2 episodes, I don't think it's an exaggeration. These 2 last episodes should have been a full 10-episode season. Like, that's what you would need to do these 2 episodes right, is 10 episodes. Mm-hmm. And so they're very crunched on that, because it's about the length of 2.5 when you add in the extra 20 minutes on each episode. So then she dies, and then and it's really sad, but then, I mean, I wasn't sad because I felt nothing at this point. I'm just like, okay, yeah, John, kill her. Just symbolically kill your entire female fan base. Now we're going to go to the next part. And then the last 40 minutes of the show are really kind of devoted to like creating a faux happy ending. It's very strange, because everything kind of ends up fine for everyone who's alive. You know, like Jon Snow gets banished to the North, but he wanted to go live in the North. He likes the North.
Yeah, that's one of the things that was interesting about hearing about what happens to a lot of the characters, and now like watching the first 5 episodes is like so nothing. It has this feeling like so nothing changes. So like, Jon Snow starts wanting to go to the Wall, and he ends up, I guess I'll just go back to the Wall, which is like that's something that I'm really concerned that is going to hurt my interest in watching the show. Is this like there's not going to be a substantial like thing where the characters have really evolved over the course of this, and for some of them, if they end up in basically the same spot that they started in terms of what they want.
Sean, Jon Snow is going to drive you up a fucking wall, because he is a walking narrative dead end. In the show, at least, again, this is all show versus books, but like, they did Jon. So I like Kit Harington. I think he's not an actor who rises above material. When you give him good material, he's good. They give him a lot of bad material, and Kit Harington spends a lot of the series being very bored, which is not his fault, but it's there.
I mean, if I was... Jon Snow seems like he should be fucking bored right now.
Yeah.
Like, he's just sitting in the cold on some fucking wall, and he's been there forever.
There's some good stuff with him in the middle seasons. But yeah, then, so that happens, you know, I think Sansa getting to be queen in the North and getting a free North makes sense, but also, like... That is a great... Like, Sansa going from the character you're describing in Season 1 to the woman who liberates the North is such a great story. And Sansa is barely in the last 2 seasons because she's a girl, and girls are scary, I guess is what Benioff and Weiss would tell us. But, like, that needed to be so much more of a plot. And she's not even in the penultimate episode. She's not even in this one until midway through the hour. And then she doesn't say anything. It's so ridiculous. Arya, I don't know where George R. R. Martin is headed with Arya, but I'm 100% certain it's not this, because Arya is too important to literally not do anything of substance in the last 3 episodes of the series. And then she becomes Nathan Drake of Westeros and goes out on an Uncharted adventure, which I would play. I want Uncharted Game of Thrones, where it's just Arya going and searching for treasure. Yeah.
Which that's the other. So it was Jon Snow and Arya of me hearing that, like, me hearing and knowing what happens to them, and then watching basically the pilot episode and being like, oh, like, that seems like that's what Arya would want to do. Like, if you were just like, here, Arya, you can do anything you want. Like it's fucking, the genie comes down, the Will Smith genie, and he comes down and he's like, I'll grant you one wish. And it's like, I want to go be a fun adventurer and have crazy fun adventures, and I want to abandon any sort of responsibilities related to my position in life. That's what she would want.
Yeah.
And same thing with Jon Snow, is like, I just want to, because Jon Snow can't think of anything better. It's like, I'll just go to the Wall. Yeah, my uncle's there. He seems cool.
Yeah, and you know, Jon Snow and Arya, like, those are the characters they've focused a lot more on in the show. Sansa, of the standing characters at the end, has by far the most interesting arc.
Oh my god! Like, right now where I am, she is like, I see where all the stupid from her fucking dad went, because it all went right to her. Arya seems fine, even though I know that Jon's not actually his son. Jon seems fine. Like, the other Stark kids that, like, I can't even name because of the
Rob is really stupid, but you don't know.
Okay, yeah. I mean, I don't even know his name because they clearly... It's very funny to be... Even if I didn't know basically what happens to some of the characters, because I know who's obviously is still alive in season 8, you could very quickly tell who the show gives a shit about and who they don't, because you just don't know the names of any of the people the show doesn't care about, because it's just like, oh, he's one of the other Stark kids. I don't know. Yeah. There's some sort of phantom Stark sibling. I think Bran has a younger brother.
It's Rickon, yeah.
He's been in like 2 scenes, and then in the last episode I watched, like, someone mentioned him offhand. I'm like, wait, there's another one of those?
Yeah.
There's another... Where is this other, like, phantasmal Stark kid that's just running around? I have no idea who... I've never even heard of him.
Yeah, Rickon is weird to me because I don't even know why they included him in the show. Because in the books, he's like 3, he's a toddler, and like in a book you can write that off more easily. In a show, like, you actually have to have a character there. Why didn't they just have Bran be the youngest? I don't get it.
Yeah, but just like it shocked me when I found out. It was like, oh, I guess there's another Stark kid I've just never heard of before.
Yeah. But anyway, like, so Sansa clearly has the biggest arc, and it's the arc the show is by far least interested in down the home stretch. And fuck that shit. Just fuck that shit. Because here's the thing about the finale that baffles me the most is... So Tyrion, they get to the council, and Tyrion's going to help them decide a new king. He gives a big speech about how stories are the most important thing, and then he turns to the audience and goes, right? Wink. He doesn't actually do that, but it's basically like that.
I mean, that's all the shit he's talking about right now also. So
and then he goes, and who has the best story among us? And I'm thinking, Arya literally saved the world, for killing the Night King. Sansa's had a pretty good story. There's
Jon Snow hung out at a wall for a while.
That's pretty good. And then he's like, Bran Stark. And I knew it was coming because I'd read the leak, so I was barely paying attention to this scene. But I remember, like, that is the thing that has clearly pissed people off the most from the finale, right?
Like, because that was the thing that when the leak happened... One, I read that because I was just like, I just was very curious.
Yeah.
What's in this leak that's making people pissed off? And I was like, I don't even know who Bran Stark is because nobody talks about him. People talk about Ned Stark. People talk about Daenerys Targaryen. They talk about Jaime and Cersei Lannister. They talk about Tyrion. They talk about fucking Tywin. I don't even think I haven't seen Tywin Lannister
You'll
yet.
meet him in episode 8.
Okay.
And he's the best character.
Yeah. They talk about Arya. I think I had heard the name Sansa before, but not much. They talk about Jon Snow. Like, they talk about all those people. Nobody ever fucking says anything about Bran, even though him getting pushed out the window is like the thing that sets all. That's the inciting incident of the plot.
Yeah, you would really think, Sean, that if the people writing Game of Thrones knew what the fuck they were doing, that they would make Bran into a character because he is the inciting incident of the show, and he becomes king at the end. They would have known that from the outset.
Yeah, because if you told me after watching the first few episodes that by the end of the 8 seasons, which is like fucking 80 hours or whatever of television, that guy is going to become the king, I'd be like, I can see how you'd get there. But having spent my whole life hearing people talk about Game of Thrones and never hearing anybody talk about Bran Stark, it doesn't give me much confidence that they do the work you need to go from, here's the kid that gets pushed out of the window and now he can't even use his legs, and he goes from that becoming king of the 7 kingdoms or whatever. I'm not sure.
So
it doesn't sound like Game of Thrones nails that.
Put the books aside.
Yeah.
We'll take them out again in a second. I just kind of laughed at it because it's so badly done. But people are really pissed about it because Bran in the show does not give a flying fuck about Bran. Bran, by the end of the show, is just a meme generator who they are laughing at. Like, he is a joke of a character. He's not even in season 5. They just kick him off the show for a full season because they're like, we don't really have any story for you, so you just go bye-bye for a whole season. Like, and the kid, like, Game of Thrones is really well cast, except for Bran. Bran was the child actor who didn't work. He did not grow into a better actor like Sophie Turner did as Sansa, or Maisie Williams turned into a great actor as Arya. Bran was a misfire. And what you do with misfires is you fucking recast them. And there's no shade, like...
Especially when there's what seems like a pretty big time difference. The character has grown up a lot. There's you have an easy excuse for recasting them that the audience will accept.
Yes, there are plenty of moments, and they do it actually with a lot of other characters. Like, Joffrey has a younger brother named Tommen, who you'll have seen him in a couple of scenes. When Tommen becomes important to the story, they went and did a casting search and found an actual actor to play Tommen, not just a kid in the background, right? So, like, they could have done that with with Bran, but they didn't. The actor never worked. They never were interested in his story. One of the big things is that the showrunners, Benioff and Weiss, clearly don't really like the fantasy elements of Game of Thrones, so they're very downplayed. Whereas in the books, there's a lot. It's not fantasy in the way like Lord of the Rings is fantasy. It's a lot almost more metaphysical and internal, but there is a lot of magic, and Bran is related to that. So the show mostly just ignores Bran. It fucks up his story left and right. Nothing it does with Bran is ever good. It never gives Bran agency. It never gives him interiority. And then at the end, just to like put one more thumb in the eyes of every woman who's ever watched this show, you have Arya, Sansa, and Bran sitting in a row, and Tyrion's like, who has the best story? The kid who sat around, did nothing the entire time, and now will become king. It's like, who are these guys? I really want to know how you can be this fucking incompetent. It's amazing to me, because if we take the books back out, Bran is a great character in the books, and everyone will say this, Bran is awesome, because of the POV structure of the books, you're in Bran's head, and you start as like a 7-year-old kid who doesn't know anything about the world, and it's this kid who grows up and like he comes into an understanding of the world, but also because of all the magical elements, he's seeing all these interesting things. I love the chapters of his that deal with magic and him becoming the three-eyed crow and all this stuff. Like, there's some really cool stuff with him, and it's hard to adapt, but that's not an excuse to not try. Mm-hmm. And the show basically just didn't try. I'm very, very excited now for the end of the books, because I think the idea of where they're heading with Bran makes 100% sense where Martin is. In the show, though, like, why do that? Like, you didn't build like, you could take Bran out of the fucking show and it wouldn't matter.
Yeah, and so it sounds to me like it's that sort of thing of where, you know, we know that George R. R. Martin sort of told them the direction that he was heading in, and presumably he said, like, yeah, and then at the end, Bran becomes king, and then maybe the showrunners are like, oh, shit. Oh, fuck. And at that moment, they had a choice. They had a number of choices. One, they could continue on the path they were going on and just ignore this character and then just make him king at the end anyways, which seems what they did. They could have made the choice of let's then now try to emphasize Bran more and fix that and then make him king. They obviously didn't do that. Or do you just say, well, fuck that. Our TV show doesn't have to do everything your books are going to do, and let's just do a different ending and pick a different character, because it just seems like it could be anybody at some point with the way the TV show's doing it.
Like, I don't know why it wasn't just Sansa, and you emphasize Sansa, and then it doesn't even have to be the North secedes. It's just the North is in charge of shit because they saved the world. Like, that's the other thing. The first 3 episodes of this season with all the zombie stuff, they are not even fucking mentioned in the last 3. It is so, like, immaterial. Like,
I will say that is the biggest bummer about watching this and knowing what happens ahead of time, is knowing that the zombie stuff comes to nothing, because that's the thing that makes a lot of the stuff happening. Obviously, it's not really relevant to any of the Daenerys stuff, but all the stuff happening in the Seven Kingdoms with the King's Landing and the North. All that stuff, I think, is lended a certain ominousness to it, because you know that there's this external threat barreling down, and all these people infighting and fucking around in here is going to screw everyone over. And that's like, honestly, the primary piece of tension that is like helping me push through it. And every once in a while I remember, like, oh, right, but from what I understand, none of this is really important, which seems crazy, because that's actually... I say that Bran getting pushed out of the window is the inciting incident. Truly, the inciting incident is that the White Walkers are coming. It's just nobody recognizes that it's the inciting incident yet. But that is the thing the fucking show starts on.
It is.
That's the first scene. And it's a great scene of these guys out, like, you don't really have any context for what being beyond the wall means yet. But these guys, like, out in the wilderness, in the woods, in the snow, and they encounter these crazy zombie monsters, and they all get fucking slaughtered. And it's like really cool scene that I was kind of taken aback by, because I wasn't expecting that to be what the show opened on. And then to like every once in a while think to myself, oh right, but I know that this is all bullshit. That's crazy to me. That's absurd.
And here's the craziest thing about it, Sean, is that the showrunners chose to add in way more zombie stuff than is in the books. Like, that is how the books open as well. That prologue is pretty much word for word. It's the same. But after that, like, Martin uses the zombies very sparingly. They're in the background. They're part of, like, the lore of this world. Like, they were here once, but everyone thinks they're a myth now. But the show adds so many more scenes with them, and I think it's because it's like, especially as they get more money for the show, it's like, let's throw it at the zombies. Mm-hmm. And it's like, and sometimes it's really good. Like, there's an episode in season 5 called Hard Home that when you get there is the peak of the zombie story, and that's not in the books. It's added by the show, and it's really good. And I think it made us all think, like, the show is even more invested in this. They must have something really good up their sleeves. Bromp, bromp. Mm-hmm. So I don't know. I would love to get like the sodium pentothal and Benioff and Weiss and be like, what were your intentions with the zombie thing? Like, seriously. Because I do have questions about where Martin is headed with it, but it's been so infrequent and precise that I assume there's something there. But like, did you really just think you were going to wrap it up in one episode? And was that always your plan? Was that really what you thought when you added in like 7 dozen zombie scenes to be cool? Like, and then you weren't going to even mention it in the finale? Like, it's amazing to me. It's amazing to me.
Yeah.
But Sean, let's move on.
Okay.
I have a little game for us. It's called, which upcoming attempt to recreate Game of Thrones' success has the greatest chance of working? I have a list of shows here. These are all real, that various networks and streaming services are planning in the coming months and or years that are clearly modeled after Game of Thrones. The lesson these networks have learned, apparently, is that you have to get a successful book series and adapt it to television, preferably fantasy. And there's a bunch of people trying to do it. More than you probably thought there were.
Yep.
You, Sean,
I'm looking at it on the screen, and it's more. There's too many.
So we're going to go through, Sean, and I just want to get your quick reaction on, will this recreate the success of Game of Thrones?
Okay.
The big one that everyone has on their radar is Amazon is doing a Lord of the Rings Middle-earth series that they have already spent like $7 billion on. Will that be a Game of Thrones level hit?
No, God. I mean, here's the problem. Okay, so one thing straight up is, because it has been confirmed that it's stuff set during the Second Age, right? Uh-huh. So it's not... Well, it's set in the Lord of the Rings, like, Tolkien world and Middle-earth and stuff. It's not, like, the events of the movies and the books. So at least there's, like... That gives it more hope than if they were trying to do a fucking adaptation of the Lord of the Rings. That would be fucking disastrous. The main problem, the reason why it's not going to go the next Game of Thrones is because there are not enough boobs, and they're not going to have enough people get brutally murdered, because that's the main thing that Game of Thrones is trucking on right now from my perspective, is like slow plot build up, and then here's someone getting like their throat fucking graphically slit, and then here's like some people having sex. It's like that will tide you over for eventually when the plot starts happening.
Amazon is also doing an adaptation of Stephen King's The Dark Tower series. You'll remember a different studio did that 80-minute movie with Matthew McConaughey everyone hated, but they're going to try to do an actual series out of it.
I think that has a slightly better chance. I think it's better chance than Amazon's Lord of the Rings, but I still don't think it's going to be great.
So let's ask 2 questions, actually, Sean, for each of these. Can it recreate Game of Thrones' success, and does it have a chance to be good? The Lord of the Rings thing, I say no on both fronts, because they ordered Lord of the Rings before they had fucking writers. Dark Tower is something that, like, it needs to be a TV series if you're going to do it. I think that could be good, and I think it could be a really, like, cult-level hit. It's not going to be Game of Thrones.
Yeah, that's how I feel. I think there's a good chance if you get good people to make it that it could be an interesting TV show, but I don't think it's ever going to have, like, a mass level of success.
Amazon is also doing Robert Jordan's The Wheel of Time. I didn't know what that was, but they had to pay a lot of money for it, and neither.
No.
Amazon is also doing an adaptation of Neil Gaiman and Terry Pratchett's Good Omens, which stars David Tennant and Michael Sheen, which is the only thing that makes me say, yes, it might be good, because I love David Tennant and Michael Sheen. It will not be Game of Thrones.
No, yeah, that's going to be... I would bet that it's going to be good, but it's only ever going to be a cult hit.
Yeah. Netflix... Okay, now we're on to Netflix.
Yeah.
Netflix has The Witcher.
No.
You fuckers cast Henry Cavill as Geralt. You fucked it all up. Netflix is doing a live-action Avatar: The Last Airbender, because that's what everyone was asking
I didn't even know that, and God, no. Please, no. Don't. No. Like, they already did it. Like, it's a perfect TV show. Leave it the fuck alone. Don't. Stop. Fuck you.
I saw when this was announced all these Avatar fans on Twitter, because there's a lot of fucking Avatar fans on Twitter who are goddamn annoying. No offense if you like Avatar, but you like it a little too much. like watch real anime. But like, sorry,
it's okay. It's not anime. Who gives a shit? It doesn't. It's the cartoon and it's really good.
It's fine. But like, people were like, "Yay, we're gonna get live action." Like,
no.
Start listing the things you liked about Avatar. Can any of those be done in live action? Now fuck off with that.
And then also, like, are all the characters are going to be fucking white? Because of course they are. Yeah. And it's like the whole thing with Avatar. It's like it's all based in like Chinese martial arts and stuff. Like it's just God.
Right. Netflix also bought the rights to the Chronicles of Narnia.
No. I don't even like the books. Like, the fucking show's not going to be good.
No. HBO has His Dark Materials coming up. That's actually a BBC show that HBO bought. So I didn't know that. But yeah, that's the Philip Pullman, right?
Yes.
And they did a movie of that a while back. It was bad, but now we've got this.
I like those books a lot. I'm not confident that the show will be good. I mean, I haven't read the book since I was like in high school. And I don't think they're going to get far enough to the point where the books get really weird, because they don't get really weird until the second book, and then it gets really cool. But I don't think they're going to get to that point. It's going to make people disappointed.
I think it has a chance to be good. I don't know if it'll be a hit. It certainly won't be Game of Thrones.
Yes. Oh, yeah. Definitely not Game of Thrones.
HBO has Watchmen. That is the one I am most confident on this entire list has a chance to be good. I think it will probably be like David Lindelof's last show, probably wind up being kind of a niche thing that people who like it really like it.
Yeah.
And then a lot of people are like, yeah, but I wanted to see superheroes fighting. I didn't want to have to think, because that's also weirdly what a lot of people think about actual Watchmen. So, yeah, I don't think it'll be that big a hit.
Yeah, but of all of these, that's the one I'm most interested in actually seeing.
HBO has just Game of Thrones 2. They're doing a spin-off.
No,
not going to work.
No, it's not going to work. Like, people are already upset about Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
Doing a spin-off. Don't.
This one actually sounds pretty interesting to me. George R.R. Martin is executive producing and kind of recommended this to HBO, as far as I know. It's by an author named Nnedi Okorafor. It's her novel series Who Fears Death. This is the description from the site. Set in a beautifully drawn post-apocalyptic Sudan, and follows Onya Sonwu, a child born of rape, on her quest for revenge against her sorcerer father. So I think it's sort of like I forget if this author is Iranian or African. I should have looked that up, probably. But it's a fantasy series that is specifically not set in like a colonial white viewpoint, very much the opposite. And I think that sounds really interesting. George R. R. Martin, by the way, if you ever watch interviews with him online, I love watching these interviews. Someone just asked him, like, what are other fantasy novels you like Game of Thrones? And he's such a good, like, friend to other writers, because he went off for like 5 fucking minutes listing like people he thinks are cool, and this was one of them.
Cool.
And then it's becoming a show. That one sounds interesting. I don't think it'll be a Game of Thrones level success, because it sounds like it wants you to think, but yeah sounds cool. And then finally, Apple, who we keep forgetting has a streaming service coming up, bought they didn't buy, it's public domain, but they're going to do Isaac Asimov's Foundation as a show.
Fucking, that's never going to work. That'd be so expensive, it would just confuse people. No.
It'll probably be like the iRobot movie, where they just turn it into an action vehicle.
Yeah, I mean, again, we ended up with a movie that named after a short story collection that is about like different instances in which his laws of robotics fail. That is more of like a thought experiment of how could complex robotics actually operate in the real world, and somehow we got Will Smith punching a robot.
Yeah. And then I did list it here. It's all the rest of these I listed because they're specifically book adaptations of fantasy. Yeah. Disney Plus is the only player in town who's specifically not trying to play this game. They're not trying to do a Game of Thrones, but they do have The Mandalorian that they're launching with. I think that's probably going to be a hit.
Yeah, I think that's going to be a hit. I think it's probably going to be very good. I want to watch it.
I think their Marvel shows are probably going to be hits and probably going to be pretty good. Like, the thing is, everyone is trying to learn the wrong lesson here. Game of Thrones, when it started, like you can see this in the episodes you've seen, Sean. They're very modestly budgeted.
Yeah,
they're very small scale. Like HBO didn't think they were going to have the hit of the century on their hands. They just made a fucking show. No one is going to know what the next Game of Thrones is. It's going to surprise us. Game of Thrones season 1 was not spectacularly high rated. Like, it will creep up on us. The person, like the studio who made it, will be surprised by it. Like The Walking Dead on AMC is the same thing.
Yeah.
You could all try to go make a zombie show, but it's not going to be a hit. Like, the next thing that is this culturally, penetrating, we don't know what it's going to be. I can guarantee you it's not going to be anything on that list.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely not going to be a fucking live-action version of Avatar: The Last Airbender. Why?
I don't know.
That's a bad pick. And then trying to do more Game of Thrones spin-offs, I think, is also a big mistake.
Yeah. All right. Well, Watchmen is probably going to be good. I think that Who Fears Death thing sounds good. I mean, HBO, this is the weird thing to me, is HBO does have a lot of good shows, and they still do and still will, and mostly HBO is not trying to chase this success. The only thing they're doing is the Game of Thrones spinoff, which they kind of have to do just for shareholders at a certain point, right?
Yeah.
But, like, I like that HBO doesn't have, like, they're not the ones buying Narnia and Lord of the Rings and Dark Tower and, like, just trying to keep it going, like...
Like, Narnia is, like... the anti-Game of Thrones, based on what I have seen of Game of Thrones so far. Like, because people like to throw out the, like, Lord of the Rings, Game of Thrones comparisons, when it's like, honestly, like, it's not that tremendously dissimilar in terms of a lot of elements that, like, I think people underestimate a lot of things in Lord of the Rings. Also, Chronicles of Narnia is the, like, here's, like, the fantasy kiddie thing where it's, like, all the protagonists are little kids, and it's a weird Christian allegory, and it's, like, kind of toothless in a lot of ways.
No, because no one's ever wanted to adapt Chronicles of Narnia for what Narnia actually is. Yeah. They've always wanted to adapt it because they didn't have the rights to Lord of the Rings. And
exactly.
They just shoehorned battles in.
Yeah, and it's like they're just, Chronicles of Narnia is a very different kind of fantasy that I'm personally not super interested in, but I think it could be done well. Obviously, a lot of people like Narnia. It's just nobody's ever going to adapt it properly.
I like Narnia, and what it would need is an animated adaptation. It would need to be nice, hand-drawn animation, keep it simple, don't have big battle scenes. There's some very sweet stories in there, but it's not this. So anyway, you want to talk about some movies?
Let's talk about some movies, Jonathan.
We're going to move through these first two kind of fast so that we can luxuriate in the beauty that is John Wick 3.
Okay.
I saw Aladdin.
I'm sorry.
I shouldn't have seen Aladdin. I brought some cookie dough bites with me. Those were pretty good. Aladdin was not. Mm-hmm. They were gone before we met the genie because the first act of this movie is 45 fucking minutes long.
It takes 45 minutes before you meet the genie?
It takes 45 minutes before you get to the Cave of Wonders. It takes like an hour before you meet the genie. Sean,
oh my
this
God!
fucking movie.
Oh my God, when that Lion King comes out, it's going to be a fucking hour before you meet Timon and Pumbaa, huh?
Uh-huh.
Jesus Christ, what are they doing?
Okay, Aladdin is 88 minutes long. Take out credits, probably 85-ish, right? And it's a tight, animated movies are tight because they have to be.
Yeah.
Like, today you get a little less of that with CGI, but, like, especially back in the day with hand-drawn, if you were gonna animate a scene, you had to know you needed that scene.
Yeah.
You can't just go point a camera at someone and be like, riff on it, Will Smith. You have to, like, be ready for it. And so... I like the 90s Disney movies to varying degrees, but Aladdin is one I love, and I respect the hell out of Little Mermaid, Beauty and the Beast, Lion King. They're very well done, right? Yeah. And part of why they're well done is that they are tight 90 minutes, where, like, every scene is there for a reason, every scene moves the plot or the characters forward, there's no fat on them. You're not going to get bored watching, even if you don't like Beauty and the Beast, there's not slow parts, it just goes, right? Yeah. And that's the thing, like, I think that's why I like the 90s Aladdin so much, and now I have to say 90s Aladdin, is it's just a really fast, tight 90 minutes, and the economy of it is really impressive. I watched it again a couple weeks ago on VHS, which was great,
yep.
And, it works for me so well. This movie is 130 minutes, and, good God, Sean, they haven't expanded the story. They haven't. It's the story. It just takes longer. Like, and here's the thing. This movie starts well. Mm-hmm. Like, the first scene where you do, it's Will Smith. They redo the framing device, so it's the genie is now human and telling the story to his kids. We'll get into that later. But then he starts singing Arabian Nights, and it's the one musical number I like in the movie because it's a really good arrangement of Arabian Nights, and the way they start it is it's this big, it's a fake single take, but it's like a single take that goes through all of Agrabah, through the palace, to the Cave of Wonders. It's very like economic storytelling because it gives you all your introduction as the song is going on, and you just kind of see the world and how it's all interconnected. It's a really good little piece of filmmaking. And then you meet Aladdin, and I like this Aladdin. It's played by an actor named Mina Massoud. He's really good. He's got good screen presence. He's funny. I like this guy. You've got Jasmine, played by Naomi Scott. I like her too. They do a smart thing where in the original film, you meet Aladdin, and he's stealing the bread, and he sings the song, "One step ahead of the..." that whole thing, and he steals the bread, and he gives it to the kids. Then Jasmine comes out of the palace, and it's like the next day, and Aladdin and Jasmine meet on the streets. And then Aladdin gets arrested and goes to the Cave of Wonders. Yeah. In the movie, they have it... This movie starts with Jasmine exiting the palace, and the whole adventure with Aladdin stealing in this movie, it's dates, not bread. I don't know fucking why. And then like their whole adventure, that's all combined into one scene. So you have the big song number and the parkour and everything, and they're all together. And I think that's fun. And it's a good scene, and they have good chemistry. And I'm like, okay, it's not as good as the original, but like Mina Massoud can't fucking sing, because of course he can. It's a musical in the year 2019. We can't hire people who can Who would have ever thought? Hire someone who can sing for your goddamn musical. I don't know. Anyway, so he's auto-tuned to shit, but that doesn't matter. I'm like, this is okay. I like the production design is great. It's a really... Because also I really like it's a physical version of Agrabah. It's not a blue screen and CGI. I like that. There's some fun parkour stuff. I'm like, this is okay. But it's okay, and then it keeps going, and they're hanging out a long time. I'm like, there's lots going on here. And then Aladdin goes... He like steals... Or Abu, the monkey, steals like Jasmine's bracelet. And then Aladdin is sad because he's like, oh, now Jasmine doesn't like me because she lost her bracelet. And so he sneaks into the palace to meet her. So they've just added another scene here where they have like their meet cute again in the palace. And they just kind of keeps going. And then Aladdin finally gets arrested by Jafar. And Jafar takes him out to in the original. They have a very great way to be economic, which is Jafar just opens a portal and they go to the Cave of Wonders. Remember that?
Yes, yeah.
Which is great. Here they have to travel across the whole fucking desert. Jafar gives them this whole song and dance, but not actually a song and dance because Jafar doesn't sing in this movie because he can't be fun anymore. And there's no Iago. And like, so, well, there's a parrot, but he's just a normal parrot.
Oh, he doesn't talk?
He talks, but just normal like parrot talk.
Yeah.
But they also got Alan Tudyk to do the parrot talk, which seems like a waste of Alan Tudyk, but whatever. Gilbert Gottfried or death, motherfuckers.
Yeah, he's still around, right?
Yeah,
Gilbert Gottfried hasn't died, right?
No, he's alive. He's on John Oliver all the time, remember?
So fucking Gilbert Gottfried. What the fuck are you doing? Fuck off.
They did get Frank Welker to do the voice of Abu and the Cave of Wonders again, and I was happy about that. So you have the normal monkey voice for Abu. But anyway, but all of this, Sean, takes 45 minutes until we get to the Cave of Wonders, and so much has happened that even though I kind of liked what we'd had so far, by the time Aladdin walks into the Cave of Wonders, I'm ready for the movie to start wrapping up. Because like we're at the point where in original Aladdin, we're in like this dense in the second act, and like things are happening, and in this movie, nothing's happened yet. And it's just like... I had to pull out my phone, and I'm doing the math, like minus 15 minutes for previews, but I kept like, I have to be wrong. Has it really been 45 minutes? We haven't even met the genie? So yes, that's the kind of long this movie is. And then, ooh, God, you meet the genie, you come back, then it just, for the second act of the movie, how they elongate it is they just have these big, dumb comedy scenes that are like from a sitcom, and not a good sitcom, like some shit you'd see on Nick and Knight or something. Mm-hmm. And like, it'll be like when Aladdin as Prince Ali meets Jasmine and the Sultan, he's like, I have brought many gems, and I've brought jams, and Will Smith is like, oh, and he's like, there's strawberry jam, and there's date, and he starts listing jam. It's clearly just the actor is riffing, and like it's just awkward, and Will Smith as the genie is like, oh, this isn't working, Aladdin, and it's just, it goes on for like 5 fucking minutes. It's utter torture. It's not funny. And they do it 5 more fucking times with like different scenes where like it's just these awkward scenes between Aladdin and different characters, or the genie and different characters, because they also give the genie a love interest in this movie. And the love interest is also Jasmine's sassy handmaiden.
What the fucking...
Sean looked like he was about to get up and walk off this podcast.
I'm like... Look, I don't even give a shit about Aladdin. I've seen the animated version of Aladdin probably like 2 or 3 times in my life, and they've all been before the age of like 12. But you can't just give the genie a love interest. There's no reason. There's literally nothing is accomplished. All you're doing is wasting everyone's goddamn time. Like, what...
Yeah, and this character...
It's the year 2019. I thought we figured out that just throwing fucking random love interests at characters doesn't a good movie make.
Because this love interest is also, like I said, a Jasmine's handmaiden whose job is basically to be like, yas, queen, but she doesn't actually say that. It would be funnier if she did. So she's doing 2 thankless roles for the price of 1, and it means we also get a weird improvisatory scene where the genie is like trying to hit on her and ask her out, and it's all awkward and bad. And yeah.
He's like an immortal entity that can grant magical wishes. Why is he trying to get it with the human?
He's also Will Smith, who's like 55, and this is Jasmine Age Handmaiden, and I don't need that. It's creepy.
Yeah, it's creepy both because in terms of the character level, like, it's like thousands of years age difference. Yeah. In terms of the actor level, it's like decades. It's like, come on, what are you doing?
Yeah, but this is the woman who he's had a family with in the framing device.
How? Did he wish himself a fucking dick? Like,
he becomes a human at the end. When they free him, they tweak it. So in the original, he's still a magical being. In this one, they tweak it so that when he's freed, he reverts to like a human state.
Okay.
So they at least like give us that. But okay, so they draw it out. The movie just stops having any and all sense of pace because each scene is just a self-contained unit that starts and stops, and then another one starts and stops, and there's no flow between them. And one of the big problems also is the Jafar in this movie is the most boring ass white bread, nothing antagonist. And Jafar in the original is so fun.
Yeah, he's cool.
He's cool. And look, I know that there is a problem with that all the 90s Disney villains are very gay-coded, and that is problematic. It's also a fucking personality.
Yeah.
So, like, yes, Jafar and Scar and Ursula are all flaming homosexuals, and that's a little awkward when they're the only flaming homosexuals and they're gay.
Yeah.
And they're evil. Sorry, they're evil. Evil and gay is it's a bad trope, right? But if you're not going to do that, you have to find a different personality.
Yeah.
You know? And also, like, I don't know, there's something about just erasing that era of Disney history. Part of it is that the animator who was the supervising animator on all those characters was Andreas Deha, who is one of the few, like, openly gay animators in Hollywood at the time. And he kind of, like, brought that into the villains he drew. At kind of like a lot of people in, like, musical units in the 30s and 40s in Hollywood were gay, and brought that kind of... That's how camp became a thing in film.
Yeah.
Like, maybe there's problematic things about it now, but I'm not fully comfortable with just erasing it. But, like, also, like, Jafar needs a fucking personality, and if you're not going to have him be just spectacularly gay, have him be something. Because this Jafar is just, he's boring. He's, like, young. He's, like, Aladdin's age, which makes no goddamn sense in the story, because he's like, I fought for years to become the vizier. And I'm like, dude, you're 20! Fuck off with this! No, you didn't! And then the Sultan isn't a character anymore. That's no fun. There's no fun in the movie. There's no fun in Jafar. Jafar's just standing there being a fucking just awful villain. And just the movie slows to a fucking halt. Everyone's trying. I like Mina Massoud. I like Naomi Scott. Will Smith is trying here. He can't do it because most of the time they're having him sing the Robin Williams songs, and Will Smith can't sing. He can rap, but they're not rapping. They're singing. He can't do that. So it's just auto-tuned to fuck. He can't hit the notes, and it's just the Robin Williams songs, and he's saying the Robin Williams dialogue, which Robin Williams improvised all of it. So, like, when they do their based on credit and they don't credit Robin Williams, I feel like someone should be sued over that. And it's like... This was a death march of a project for everyone involved, of like, take this beloved movie and do it, but without a soul. Have fun for 2-3 years working on that, Guy Ritchie. I know everyone wants to be mad at Guy Ritchie because he's made a couple bad movies in a row now, but, like, I don't really blame him for Aladdin. I don't really blame him for King Arthur Legend of the Sword, because that's not a good idea.
And because nobody remembers that movie, so it's rough to blame someone for something that nobody remembers ever happened.
I don't really blame him for Sherlock Holmes: A Game of Shadows, even if it is one of the worst movies I've ever sat through in my life. You know, but, like, at a certain point, take better projects, dude.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's really bad. They also, they give Jasmine a song. So in the original, Jasmine's only song is A Whole New World with Aladdin.
Right.
Which is in here. And Naomi Scott is the one member in the cast who can sing and is not auto-tuned, from what I can tell. But she gets her own solo song called Speechless, which is written by the guys who did La La Land.
Okay.
Talented songwriters. But Sean, tell me if you can spot the problem with plopping in a song from the year 2019 into a musical where you are using verbatim the songs from 1992.
Are there pop culture references in her 2019?
No, it's just it doesn't sound right.
Well, yes,
it's not pop culture. It's just a pop song from 2019.
Okay,
like it sounds like the kind of thing that would play over the credits. And it's
okay. I think I picking up what you're putting down now.
And here we get to the problem. All of these live action Disney remakes have tried to insert some hashtag feminism into the game. Do you trust Disney to do hashtag feminism, Sean?
No.
Because what they wind up with, this happened in Beauty and the Beast and it happens here, is I think a more problematic version of, like, the gender issue than the original had. Because look, Disney animation isn't good with women. We all know that. But if you are behemoth Disney who doesn't actually give a shit about feminism but just wants to get the hashtag trending, you're going to do it poorly. And they did it. So in Beauty and the Beast, what they did is they added in Belle is an inventor now, and Belle teaches young girls to read, and the people in the town don't like either of those. Hashtag feminism, right? And then what happens over the course of the story is Belle never gets to use her powers for invention to save the day, and the reading never becomes a plot point again, because in that version of Beauty and the Beast already knows how to read, so she doesn't even get to teach the Beast how to read. He mansplains to her about why she likes the wrong things. He's like, what's your favorite Shakespeare play? And she's like, I like Romeo and Juliet. And he's like, oh, women. And it's like...
To be fair, Romeo and Juliet, not the best play.
Fine, but it's her goddamn right to like it.
No,
and it's like...
She can like whatever she wants.
This is so, like, do you see what I mean? It becomes more sexist when you give her extra things she can do as a woman, and then the plot resolutely denies her the ability to do those things.
Yeah, because especially if you're so focused on, like, we are just, like, keeping all of the core, everything from those movies, we're just piling fucking 30 more minutes of bullshit onto it. Yeah. That, you can't do that. Like, that's just nothing is going to gel.
So in Aladdin, Jasmine's whole thing is she wants to be Sultan, but the Sultans have to be men. And so she's like, I want to be Sultan. And she sings this song Speechless twice. Early on, the Sultan tells her she can't be Sultan. And so she's like, the song is about how she feels like she doesn't have a voice. But it is also, hilariously, the song is done completely non-diegetically. So like she goes into like a fantasy space to sing it. So she's literally not singing it to anyone else. It's all in her head. The song about how she doesn't have a voice.
That was thought through.
Yeah. And so then at the end of the movie... Jafar is like taking over, like this is when Jafar has the lamp and he's wished to become Sultan, and Jasmine and the Sultan, the real Sultan, are being led away by the guards, and Jasmine goes into her fantasy realm and sings Speechless again, and then comes out of her fantasy realm and is like, no, I am going to talk, and she stops and gives a big rousing speech to the guards to be like, we are the royal family, don't listen to Jafar. And then Jafar rubs the fucking lamp and just becomes a sorcerer, and, like, it doesn't matter. So, like, because they have not altered the story, Jasmine seems weak and ineffectual rather than just a character, which is what she was in the original, which isn't great. Like, I like Jasmine in the original. It's not great, like, female representation in film, but it's better than give her a voice, but then Jafar's just like, lamp, and then Aladdin has to save the day anyway. So it's like...
and so she has a song about how she wants to become Sultan but can't because she's a woman. And then what happens at the end of the movie?
She does become Sultan, but, like, it's the end of the movie. Who fucking cares?
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, it's because it's the same. In the original movie, like, Aladdin cannot marry Jasmine because he's not a prince. So at the end of the movie, the Sultan, her father, says, oh, I can change that, don't worry. And he changes the law. In this, it's the Sultan says, you become Sultan, and then you can change the law. So it's the same plot outcome. It's just now she has nominal power. Mm-hmm. It is just the worst corporate faux feminism, and I fucking hate it. Detective Pikachu.
Detective Pikachu. Again with the fucking faux feminism.
No. Okay, it has been like 4 weeks since I saw this movie, Sean, so I barely remember.
Yeah.
I remember I really liked the Pokemon.
So
you tell me what you got.
I got back from this movie 3 hours ago.
Okay.
Because, so I had forgotten that I had originally wanted to be able to see it so I could talk about it on the podcast, because we recorded last week's podcast, and then the day after that I went and saw John Wick 3. I was like, great, now we can talk about John Wick on the podcast. And I just totally forgot that Detective Pikachu was also something I had wanted to watch. And then it came to this morning, and I woke up, and I was, like, thinking through, okay, what's all the stuff I want to talk about on the podcast today? I was like, I never saw Detective Pikachu. And then I just looked at it, it's like, well, there's a showing at 11:10 on Sunday, 4 weeks after the fucking movie came out. I might as well. So, yeah, so I went to the movie theater, and then I was literally the only person in that fucking theater. I showed up, like, 5 minutes late, So the fucking trailers were still playing for like 5 fucking minutes after I showed up late. I was also like the only person I saw in the theater other than the people working there. So it wasn't just like I was the only person in the literal theater watching, like, in the room with the screen. I mean, the whole process, other than like the people, there were a couple people lined up at like the ticket thing outside, but once I got past that, nobody at the concession stand, nobody in the hallways. I went to the bathroom twice, nobody in the bathrooms, like before the movie and after the movie, bathroom completely empty. And then just like the two people like checking tickets, like just standing there. I mean, you only needed one person to check the tickets, but because no one was there, they were just standing there chatting. I'm like, there's my phone that had my ticket thing on, and they scanned it. It's like, it's the one over there. Thank you. Go and sit down. Sit down and suffer through the most insufferable, terrible fucking movie trailer I've ever seen in my life, which is for, I think it's called A Dog's Life?
Dog's Journey?
Dog's Journey. There's some dog movie that, you know how people make a joke about how, the movie trailers these days just show you the whole movie? This is literally, beat for beat, must be the entirety. It shows you the whole, like, it goes to the dog being a puppy, to the dog growing up, to the dog going on an adventure, because he gets lost or some shit, and has to run back and find his pet. It's just like, the trailer couldn't have possibly been longer than 2 minutes, but it felt like I was like trapped and watched a 90-minute movie somehow before I watched Detective Pikachu, because it was just the worst fucking horseshit I've subjected myself to in a long time.
I thought you were going to say Ugly Dolls, because I've had to see that trailer several times.
No, I haven't seen that.
It's so fucking bad.
No.
All right.
So yeah, I saw that. Like, go look at that trailer on YouTube, and like, if you're if you're just like procrastinating before something, it's like there's something you have to do in your life you just so terribly don't want to do, and it's happening soon, and you just wish you could like spend 90 minutes before you have to do take some test or something. Go watch that trailer, and like you will like be in the fucking hyperbolic time chamber or some shit for 90 minutes watching this goddamn trailer. So I saw the trailer for Sonic the Hedgehog, and then I watched alone at this movie theater, just sit right in the middle, nobody there, all of Detective Pikachu. That movie's okay.
Yeah. I think I liked it more than you. I thought the second half was better than the first. There's stuff I love all the Pokemon stuff. I think the Pokemon are really well designed, and like there's a lot of them in the movie. It's not just like the ones you know. And I thought they were used well. I liked the scene where they're running through the forest and everything's breaking up, and then you find out it's giant Pokemon that they're on the back stuff. I thought that was cool, like, and had a lot of imagination to it. I thought it was well directed. Like, I think this is Rob Letterman, who's an animation director. He did, I think, Monsters vs. Aliens and some other DreamWorks stuff, and he clearly has an animator's eye for all of this, so I thought it was well made. I liked how batshit crazy the ending was with Bill Nighy becoming Mewtwo, and I was just like, I just never expected them to go that deep into the lore of fucking Mewtwo in this movie. I liked Ryan Reynolds as Pikachu. I like Justice Smith. I don't think it's a great movie or anything. I do like the girl who's like his friend, the journalist girl. I thought she was cool. But I think it's a good kids movie, and it is again the only video game movie I've ever seen, not from Japan, that like seems to actually enjoy the source material it's working with. And maybe that's just because of that bar I give it extra points. But
yeah, because it is a movie that to me feels like people are giving it a lot of extra points because it's better than you would expect it to be.
Yeah.
Because I guess kind of my like log line for my take on the movie is that it's not as good as you would have hoped, but it's not as bad as you probably feared, right?
Yeah.
Like it's not like this like, oh my god, like video game movies can be great. It's a totally okay movie. But it's not like a fucking trash fire the way that 3 years ago when you heard rumblings of they're making a Detective Pikachu movie and Ryan Reynolds is going to be Pikachu, and you're like, kill me now, please. I don't want to see that. Like, it's, it's not that movie either. But it is like, outside of like the handful of pretty, like, because I agree with you, there are a couple of those scenes where they kind of let the action kind of kick up a little bit more, that it becomes a little bit more impressive in terms of the direction. Outside of that, though, it is a, like, pretty generic kids movie that happens to have Pokemon in it, is kind of what it feels like to me. And it's, you like every like 5 minutes into the movie, you know what every single plot beat is going to be, you know what the twist is going to be. You don't know the specifics of how weird the like I'm Bill Nighy inside of Mewtwo, like you don't know that specifically, but that also speaks to like there's not really much in terms of like a theme or like any like thing like that. Like there are themes about missing fathers and people in Pokemon working together. Like, there's technically something there, but it's not interested in anything like that for its story. Like, I personally didn't find the Justice Smith, the main kid, like, protagonist character like that. It is, like, I think that actor is given a very thankless role because the character is such a fucking wet blanket, and at a certain point, it's just like, why did you make this character the dullest fucking person on the planet?
That's my problem. Like, I thought Justice Smith was good with what he
Yeah.
did, and also just keeping in mind that he had to act this entire movie across from a rubber ball or something. Like, you know, I think, like, his rapport with Pikachu is good, and that's always impressive when you have a CGI thing. But yeah, I thought this is the latest in a long line of movies where they have a male protagonist because that's the default, and then they introduce a female character the same age who is way more interesting. And that was, so the character's name is Lucy Stevens, that is the name in the game, and the actress is Catherine Newton. I really liked her. She's like really peppy, and like I really liked her first scene where she's an intrepid journalist. Like, she has an actual reason to be here and be seeking this stuff out. Why is she not the main character?
Yeah, it's just all the stuff with Tim Goodman being like, oh, I wanted to be a Pokemon trainer when I was a kid, but I have, like, you know, the most generic, like, my dad had work stuff, and couldn't be my dad, and so I didn't want to be Pokemon Man. And it's just like, it's been a long time since I had seen, like, an average kids movie like this, and it was just like, immediately I was just struck by the, like, 100 movies I've seen before that are exactly this movie. This one just happens to have Pokemon stuff in it. So when it leans into the Pokemon stuff is when it's at its most exciting. But it also it ends up in frustrating places where, like, there's nothing more ridiculous than when in this movie, Tim Goodman and Pikachu have their falling out at the beginning of the third act, where it's like Pikachu gets hurt by a rock. It's just sort of weird. They never really addressed by how, like, pathetic it is, like, the scenario in which Pikachu... I kept on thinking that it was going to be a joke at some point, but it's just not. They play it totally straight. It's like, there's just, like, a small rock falls and hits him in the chest. It's like, yeah, he's a small Pokemon. I guess that would hurt him. But I feel like as a movie, you'd want to present something more dramatic if it's like, oh, God, Pikachu's dying. But then that happens, and then Tim Goodman saves him, and by sort of inadvertently getting Mewtwo to help that he doesn't realize Mewtwo is a good guy yet, and then Pikachu gets part of his memories restored, and it's just the inconvenient part of his memory that makes him think that, oh, I must have been evil. And he's like, well, if I just betrayed your father, and so I can't be with you because I'm a guy who betrays people. And then 5 minutes later, he stumbles upon the crime scene. He's like, oh, I guess that's not what happened. I should probably go help my friend. Is the only person I have any rapport with. It's like the most unbelievable character beat that is reversed immediately because it's something that if you wanted to do, it should have happened halfway through Act 2, not the very beginning of Act 3 that you have to reverse immediately.
No, it's bad writing there. I do like the scene, though, where Pikachu is sadly walking down the bridge singing the Pokemon theme song.
Yeah, I like that in theory, but I didn't feel like it was earned. Like, I think the movie has a tone issue of it doesn't know how serious it wants to be when it wants to be serious. It doesn't know how funny it wants to be when it wants to be funny.
It should be a lot sillier. Like there's too much heavy stuff with Tim Goodman. Because there's also, like, because I do love the crazy shit at the end, because we haven't even talked about how they have all the stuff with Ditto becoming a human, and, like, all of that I love. It's crazy. It's great. But, like, yeah, when you have all the, like, dark flashbacks to, like, Tim and his dad, which doesn't seem like they had that big a problem. It's just, yeah, I never need to see another Hollywood movie where you have, like, a young male protagonist whose dad works too much. Like, fuck that. Just stop it.
Yeah.
Like, what's the fucking message, Hollywood? Work less so you can take your kids to fewer movies? Like, fuck off with this shit. Anyway, yeah, I don't even know how much there is to say about it.
Yeah, like, I was actually honestly kind of shocked when I went out of the theater to realize, like, I really don't know if I have that much to say about this on the podcast, other than I think Ryan Reynolds was good. But I think a better movie would have been if you just had Ike Otani doing Pikachu stuff and you just had subtitles to communicate the plot. Because legitimately the most fun I had in the movie was every time, and it's only like 2 or 3 times, you get little bits of the Ike Otani as Pikachu. And it's like, at the very least, on like the home video release, they need to have a video version of the movie that just, even if you don't have subtitles, you just have Ike Otani doing Pikachu stuff. And it's like, if anyone else heard those scenes, like, I think that's, like, honestly a missed opportunity of the movie, is like playing more with the aspect of that Tim is the only person who can understand this Pikachu, because they only do that joke kind of once, and it's in the trailer, and it's very early in the movie. And I think the movie would be way funnier if you had a couple other times where it kind of zooms out and you see from someone else's perspective what someone talking to a Pikachu that's just going Pika Pika Pee, like, what that actually looks like. And not doing that, I feel like, is both a missed opportunity because Ike Otani's performance as Pikachu is fucking legendary.
Yeah.
And I think it was just been a good goof.
It would have been. I totally agree with that. I liked Psyduck in this movie a lot.
Yeah.
Psyduck was funny. I liked the scene with all the Bulbasaurs helping Pikachu. The Bulbasaurs were great. They steal the show. You know, I love all the stuff with the different Pokemon. That's all fun. I would like a more Pokemon-centric Pokemon movie next because I think they did such a good job with all the live-action CGI Pokemon stuff.
Yeah.
You know, the Mr. Mime scene was funny, but it was also spoiled in the trailers, which sucked. What did you think about Ryan Reynolds being the dad at the end and that whole...
Like it made... Like, I realized, like, the second before they were doing it, like, okay, that's got to be what they're doing. Yeah. But it was that thing of, like, okay, like, I don't buy... Like it's interesting that I feel like Justice Smith and Ryan Reynolds had much better chemistry when Ryan Reynolds was a Pikachu than when he's supposed to be his actual dad. Like that just didn't play for me.
It also... Ryan Reynolds isn't old enough to have a kid. I mean,
exactly.
He technically is, but, like, Ryan Reynolds in real life has, like, a 3-year-old. So it's
it's just like, it just... That... I get why they did it, but it just didn't play for me, and that was kind of weird.
Yeah, Ryan Reynolds is 42. He would have had to have Justice Smith like 23 or something.
Yeah,
I know my math's wrong, but still, you know. Yeah. Anyway, I don't know. I think this kind of thing was always going to be a partial shit show because of all the hands in the cookie jar, you know. And I think people did a good job on it, like, who were working on it. This is also a movie with, like, 7 credited writers when you look at it, because the screenplay changed so many hands.
Makes sense.
I would, you know, Rob Letterman, I think, did a good job with it, and I think if they want to do another live-action Pokemon movie, whether it's Detective Pikachu 2 or something else, I'd like to see him come back. I'd like to see them hone in on what worked here. I think it definitely proves that you can do this in live action. You can make a video game movie that works. You could make it work better than this, definitely. But, like, I like that we've at least cracked the code of, like, they don't have to be utter soulless shit.
Yeah. The last note of, like, thinking about other, like, Detective Pikachu and other Pokemon movies is that I agree that honestly, I think I would have just preferred if they had just gone for, let's just do a fucking Pokemon movie instead of Detective Pikachu specifically. Because one of my other disappointments with the movie is that they really don't do much with the detective premise.
I was going to say that, yeah. Because in the game that it's based on, you're solving cases. Like, Pikachu is like, here's our clues. Like, with these 5 pieces of information, what do we have? And the Pikachu also, his whole personality is that he thinks he is Meitante. I'm a great detective, right? And he wears the cap and all this stuff, and he's kind of arrogant. None of that's in this. Like, he wears the cap, but this Pikachu is never like, I'm a great detective. Let's do our detective work.
The closest you get is early in the movie. You have the one scene where Tim Goodman wakes up and he goes out into, like, the apartment or whatever, and overnight Pikachu has, like, laid out this whole thing with, like, yarn and everything. But that's just played entirely as a joke, not as, like, a character moment for Detective Pikachu. And they never revisit that. And then just also in terms of, like, the plotting of the movie, it's, like, nominally a detective story because they're trying to follow some clues, but they're, like, there's something wrong if you're trying to do a detective story and the last thing that happens is you visit the crime scene. Like, that was, like, something that I thought was just... Because I kept on thinking early in the movie, like, why aren't they going to where the crash happened? Because surely there's going to be clues about whether or not your dad is alive if you go to where the crash happened. Because the whole first half of the movie is them trying to figure out whether or not Tim Goodman's dad actually died in the crash, or whether they're looking for him, or and what's going on with this weird serum. Surely you want to go to the fucking scene where the crash happened to establish all of that stuff. And eventually, Pikachu does go to the crash scene, but it's only when he accidentally stumbles on it once he's had his, like, coincidental falling out. And he's singing his song. He's like, oh, wait, I know where this is. Oh, my God, this is the scene of the crime. I guess I'll investigate. And he immediately stumbles over, like, this is a Greninja star. This is like, I thought they just shot water, but okay.
People are so bad at telling detective stories now, though, Sean. Like, you know, fucking the Sherlock Holmes episodes on the fucking holodeck of Star Trek The Next Generation where Data is cosplaying, those are better at forming a mystery than any current adaptation of Sherlock Holmes.
Yeah.
Like, it's just something that, like BBC's Sherlock, the Guy Ritchie Sherlock, this, other detective things we've seen, they just have no interest in actually telling a mystery. They just want to have, like, action or something. And
yeah, which feels like it's a missed opportunity, because I think that would have been the thing that would have pushed this from being like a sort of generic kids movie that's only remarkable because it does some fun Pokemon stuff, to being like a legitimately solid movie in its own right. Would be if it blended the fun Pokemon stuff with being a fun detective parody, and it just completely abandoned the detective side of it immediately.
You want to talk about something genuinely remarkable?
Yeah, let's move on to talking about Detective Pikachu Chapter 3 Parabellum, where Pikachu just headshots a million motherfuckers.
John Wick Chapter 3 Parabellum. If you haven't seen it, go fucking see it. If you haven't seen 1 and 2, go watch 1 and 2, then go see 3. They're so good. Sean, I love this movie like I love my child. I don't actually have a child, but if I did, it would be the way I love John Wick 3, and hopefully I don't murder it.
Yeah.
But, oh God, Sean, I've seen it twice. I had to go back a second time to make sure it was real, because it seemed like a wonderful dream. This movie is so fucking good. I can't believe it exists. It does things that I never thought an American action movie would do, namely the entire just final half fucking hour.
Yeah.
Oh, it's so good. It's so good.
Yeah, it is utterly phenomenal. I've only seen it once, and it's been a week now, so some of my memory of it will be slightly faded of some of the specifics, but there are action sequences in this movie that are as good as in anything I've ever seen.
Yes.
And it's like, I think I probably prefer some of like the plotting and the pacing of John Wick 2 a little bit more over this one, but I think the action sequences in this are as good, if not better, than anything in the other John Wick movies.
And I watched them all like right before I saw the new one. And I thought I liked the plotting in this one a little more, but it's 6-1, who cares? But like, yeah, I mean, it's just a remarkable film. It's so well made. Like, seriously, this is one of the, I think, best just like pieces of film art I've seen in years. And I know we say art and it's John Wick and it's silly, but like, there's so much artistry on display here to the level of choreography going on, because I feel like the big advancement in this one over 1 and 2 is the addition of all this hand-to-hand stuff, which really isn't in John Wick 1 and 2 that much. It's mostly the gun fu, as they call it. You get a little bit, the fight with Common in John Wick 2 does some really good hand-to-hand stuff, and then at the end with Ruby Rose, there's some of that as well. But like, it's mostly gunplay. You get that here, and it's better than ever. The scene with the dogs, oh my fucking God. But like, you get that full last half hour is like the ending to the fucking Raid. I mean, it's literally one of the actors is one of the actors from the Raid, and he's also the stunt coordinator of the Raid. I should look up his name. But then, like, early on, the scene in the room full of antique knives. Mm-hmm. Oh my God.
It's one of my favorite action sequences from any movie I've ever seen. It's just like, I remember seeing a tweet, I think maybe it was Ben Pack from Giant Bomb tweeted this, of just like, now any movie that doesn't have a fight in the knife museum is a disappointment to me, because it is just like this, like, I just don't understand why I've never seen a scene before in one of these movies where they're fighting in a room just full, like, floor to ceiling with fucking knives, and they're just throwing dozens of knives at each other. And I love that, not all the knives hit. And it's one of the things that, like, makes the John Wick movies so great. It's one of the things they inherit, I think, mostly specifically from Jackie Chan, but from a lot of great Hong Kong action movies, which is the, like, these fighters are not perfect. And John Wick is not perfect. And, like the reason why John Wick wins is because he has the most determination. Because he's going to get his fucking ass kicked all the time. He just is able to squeeze it out at the end.
He's very creative and resourceful. That's
exactly. And so, like, so he's not like the assassin that every single knife throw hits the dude straight in the skull. Sometimes he throws a knife and the fucking, he doesn't get it perfect, because this isn't his, like, perfect throwing knife he's trained with. So it's just like, it's just going to hit him in the hilt and it's going to bounce off the guy. So instead, how you solve that problem? You throw 5 fucking knives at him until one of them fucking hits him in the skull.
It's so good. I mean, the first half hour of this movie, Sean, I love that because of the setup at the end of John Wick 2, where he killed the dude in the Continental, so he is now excommunicado, and that's how John Wick 2. Ian McShane in this. But so that's the end of John Wick 2. So John Wick 3 just gets to start. It doesn't have to do any plot building. It's just John Wick has an hour left. He's on the run, and we just do this half hour. He needs to get to Angelica Houston. Yeah. And that half hour is all these miniature action sequences that combine together. So you start with, he goes to the New York Public Library, and he kills that dude with the book.
Oh my God.
That is the most wonderfully, beautifully brutal murder in a film ever. I saw this opening night, full theater, and when he starts shoving it in the dude's mouth and then breaks his neck over it. It was just audible, the entire theater going, whoa! And it was so great.
It has one of the best openings to any of these kinds of movies I've seen. Of just, like you said, it's able to start going immediately, and it's able to just be like what are some things that we could do that would not be something you want to do for like a big climactic action scene for one of these movies, but something like lighter where it's like a small group of guys that he can fight. It's like, well, we always talk about how like creative John Wick is, and like he kills like 3 dudes in a room with a pen or whatever. Like, let's have one of those where it's like, okay, this time it's with a book. Now we have him like he doesn't have a gun, so he has to go like put this revolver together and then fight guys in the room with the fucking knives. And then what's something that's cool? Horses are fucking cool. Let's have him fight in the horse stable and kill dudes with horses, which is great.
It's so good.
And then have a chase in the streets of New York City with him on the back of a fucking horse. And it's just...
And this is what I meant.
Good.
This is what I meant last week, Sean, when I told you the trailer shows nothing.
Yeah.
All of that is everything that's in the trailer is from the first half hour of this movie.
Yeah.
And I would have thought from the trailer the horse thing was the climax of the movie.
Yeah.
The trailer doesn't even hint at the last hour of this film. Mm-hmm. It's got none of the stuff in the Continental. So like, you go from the streets of New York to the public library, the scene with the doctor, which is great. He has to stitch himself up and then shoot the doctor twice. And then you have the scene in the museum with the antique revolver where he does all this work to get one shot off, and then we're in the room full of knives. The moment in the room full of knives when they're all like getting ready to fight, they're sizing each other up, and then they look around like just start breaking glass,
break the windows and start throwing. Yeah, it's like there's so many great little character moments built into the fight scenes.
Yes,
it's not just people going and trying to kill each other. Everyone's like, they're all these trained assassins, and they're trying to sort of like outmaneuver each other, and they're looking around for any advantage they can get. So there's little moments of like them squaring off, and then both look over and they're like, oh, where did knife place? Bam! Let's knives and start fucking throwing knives at each other.
And even then, like the moment you see a little bit of it in the trailer of him just throwing knife after knife at that one guy on the floor, that's not even the best beat of that scene.
No.
That scene is so good throughout. And it also, like, this movie gets graphic in a way the other John Wicks are not, where he has to shove the knife in the dude's eye. And in the other movies, you always cut away before it gets in, but they just let it play out, and the knife just goes in and takes that guy's eye out. And then he picks up the axe and takes out the last guy.
And it's like, that some, like, stunt coordinator or someone has been playing the Hitman games, because it's the most Hitman just overhead, whack right in the skull, the exact way it happens in those Hitman games.
I thought of that too. I thought of you specifically. I started saying, like, Sean's gonna love that moment because I'm sure he's done that a million times in fucking Hitman.
It's very good.
It's so good. And I just love that you string all of this together as this momentum to just like set up the shit John Wick is in. And then he gets to Angelica Houston. And this is where I am impressed by the storytelling in all these movies, is these movies never really have to stop, like come to a halt to just do exposition. It's still moving. Like, why is he there? Because he needs to get out of the country and get to Casablanca. So we get a little bit John Wick origin, but like a lesser version of this, he would get there and he would look up at the building and we would go into a black and white flashback and like have him doing ballet or something, which would be very funny. I want Keanu Reeves in a tutu doing ballet. It'd be great. But like, instead it's just moving through the space and you get a sense of who he was here. Angelica Houston, I think, is actually very fun in this part.
Yeah.
As this woman who like helped raise John Wick, and he's got his fucking ticket and he keeps holding it out on those prayer beads, the cross on the prayer beads, and it's like I am owed.
I love the fucking Keanu Reeves doesn't typically have many lines in any of these movies. Every single line, he fucking leans all the way into it.
He makes a 3-course meal out of every piece of dialogue in this movie. Yes, it's so good. He has to get fucking branded on the back. John Wick goes through some shit in this movie. He's branded, he loses a finger, he gets shot 5 times, and then he falls off a fucking building. We'll talk about that. But yeah, then we get to Casablanca, and I love this whole section of the movie because Halle Berry, I actually feel like now after this, it's like, oh, this is a Keanu Reeves situation. Halle Berry is actually very good at what she does, and she was stuck in the wrong kind of movies for too long, and now I want an action movie with Halle Berry like this because she has the same kind of physicality Keanu Reeves does.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it is that kind of moment where you're like, oh, right, no, like Halle Berry can be very good at this stuff if you use her well.
Yeah, and they're very fun together. I like their scenes. I like that now we bring back the idea of the not the token, but the
marker.
Yeah, and this is his marker that he has on her, and they have this thing with and then they have the scene with Jerome Flynn from Game of Thrones. You haven't met this guy yet, but it's Bronn from Game of Thrones is the guy they go to meet.
Okay.
And then there's the whole scene that follows out from that where he shoots the dog. The dog is okay this time, which is great.
I get it.
Yeah, I get it. That got a huge laugh in my theater. And then, my God, the action sequence where they're shooting their way out and the dogs are with them, like, that's the kind of thing John Wick's never really done, because it's usually John Wick solo against the world.
Yeah.
But it was this little team of John Wick, Sophia, the Halle Berry character, and the two most awesome dogs in the history of film, just tearing shit up. That, I think, is the best gunplay sequence in the series.
Yeah, and it's something of where it's I've never seen a scene like that in one of these movies, which is not something you can typically say. Because even like when John Wick's very good, usually it's like, oh, I can see this is sort of referencing this, or this is kind of similar to that scene from this Jackie Chan movie or something. This is like, I have never, because like the coordination you would need and all the effort they would have gone into to training these dogs to do all these shots, like that's a truly like monumental effort that most action directors are just kind of like, fuck that, no, that's ridiculous. Are you kidding me? And they're like, no, shit, we'll get these dogs, we'll train these dogs, and we'll like do all the legwork you need to do to get that kind of scene to happen. And they just get some shots that are like unbelievable, that have both dogs involved in like multiple, like it's like it'll be one continuous shot focused on Halle Berry, and she'll be sicking dogs, and like the dog will go hit this one mark, and then there'll be another enemy that comes around, the other dog comes, and then the first dog comes around again, and it's like the coordination needed to get all that to happen in some of those longer takes is just unbelievable to me.
Absolutely unbelievable. And because I also noticed this when I was watching it for the second time, like the John Wick movies are not super cutty, like they don't have a lot of fast cuts, but this one uses more long takes than the other ones.
Yeah.
And especially in that scene where, with the dogs, like it's a lot of just long takes of just watching all this. It really is like watching dance. It's just this amazing choreography with John Wick and Halle Berry, and then all of the other people who we don't know their names, but the stunt people doing all of the other action, getting killed, and then these two dogs on top of that, and just like the geography of the scene is so well laid out. It's so thrilling to watch. It's unbelievably well executed.
Yeah, and it's just something where you usually don't, we talk a lot about how great the stunt work is in these movies, but you usually don't get to talk about how great the dog stunt work is.
Yes.
Because it is like, there are just some of those like, the kinds of scenes that in one of these movies are like in a, like in like Police Story is like a good example of one of these kinds of moments where one of the things that's so impressive about the end of that movie where he's sliding down the pole and all the lights are exploding is, one, it's a great shot, but two, it's like a, holy shit, that dude's just doing that shit, and that's like just a cool stunt that this man is doing. And you usually don't see that for dogs, but like there's just like shots where it's like, that's just a cool dog stunt. Like that dog just ran up that fucking wall. That's cool. Most dogs can't do that. That's a very cool dog that has been trained to do cool dog shit that other normal dogs would never be able to do.
I know, and I also love that Halle Berry has trained her dogs to go for the crotch every time. They just are tearing at dudes' crotches every 5 seconds, and it's great. That whole sequence, man. It's because that's the thing. This movie throws down such a gauntlet for itself in the first half hour where you're like, they're not going to be able to top that.
Yeah.
And they totally fucking do. Like, not that it diminishes the first half hour, but it's like they're constantly finding ways to keep the ante upped, and it's amazing to me.
Yeah.
Like, I would say, like, oh man, I don't know how they're going to make John Wick 4 work. If I hadn't said that after 1, after 2, now after 3, it's like, you never second guess these guys.
Yeah.
Yeah. So then we get the whole scene where we get John Wick going out into the desert and having to walk until he... I love the lore of this, that to find like the head of the high table, he has to just walk out into the fucking desert. And you get some really beautiful shots of... They clearly just dropped Keanu into the middle of the fucking desert.
Yep, in his big black suit and everything.
Yep. And then he has to do basically the Yakuza thing of cutting off his... It's not his pinky. I thought it was going to be his pinky, but he cuts
off... No, it's the fucking Assassin's Creed thing.
Okay.
Like, it's where... Because I should actually look this up if this is actually a thing or if Assassin's Creed invented this. But in the original Assassin's Creed, in Assassin's Creed 1, the assassins cut off their left ring finger because that's where the hidden blade came out. And so as part of like their oath is they would cut off their finger. And so I suspect that must be something like, whether it historically happened or it's like a legend or something, that must be something more real. because that's very specific. Because John Wick does the exact same thing.
Yeah,
and he
it
has
must
like
be.
the assassin thing for the rest of the movie.
He does, and I also read a great interview with Chad Stileski, the director, where he was explaining like they were asking him how they did that because Keanu Reeves is missing a finger the rest of the movie, and he said, "Oh, it was a significant budgetary concern."
Yeah,
because one, Keanu Reeves is actually left-handed, so it's the hand you see more in the movie. And he said they really had they wanted it in the script, but they had to go to the producers and the money people and be like, it's a third of the movie, can we make it work? Because they had to CGI out the finger in every shot. And they said, yeah, but you're going to have to cut back. And they had to cut back on other things in the movie. It doesn't show up on screen. It looks great throughout. But they did have to cut back a little bit. And now I'm wondering, John Wick 4, are they going to give him a robot finger or something to make it, to save some money? Because that's the funniest thing to me is that they also did it on his dominant hand.
Yeah.
Just to make it an extra challenge. Because you can see behind the scenes photo where Keanu Reeves, there was one I saw in the train station scene where he's squaring off with Zero, the assassin samurai guy, and he's got a black little thing over his finger just to mark where they're going to have to take it out. But he had to wear that for most of the movie, and it's hilarious to me.
Yeah.
Their commitment. But it works as a story beat, because I think we're talking about all the action and visuals and stuff, but I like the through line in this about John having to, at a certain point, reassess, what's my point for going on, anymore? Because he's going and he says, I want to live to remember my wife, and he seemingly just completely sacrifices himself by taking the finger off. But then Ian McShane, Winston, they have that great scene in that amazing set. We thought the Hall of Mirrors in John Wick 2 was cool.
Yeah.
Hall of Mirrors in John Wick 3 is really cool. And it's almost like he's meeting his maker or something, the way this scene plays when he meets Winston at the end.
It's partially because it's Keanu Reeves, but it made me think of them meeting the architect in Matrix 2.
Yeah.
It's got that kind of vibe to it.
It's anime as fuck.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Winston asks him about who do you want to live as? Who do you want to die as? And I like John having to kind of reassess his priorities there. It's a good through line for the movie.
Yeah.
Because that's the other thing is as silly as these movies are, and they're so gloriously, beautifully silly, I think part of it is is Keanu Reeves, part of it is the writing. They've kept John Wick as a fairly grounded human. I love that he always has these little emotional things to come back to. And it's just, he's a very consistent character in that way, which works.
Yeah, they don't lose sight of, that there's some sort of core plot or character motivation for what is always happening, and that obviously that was one of the things that the original John Wick did exceptionally well. Even, it's sort of memey a little bit, but the stuff with the dog, provides such a clear, strong motivation for this character. And they never lose sight of that. People need that. They need that little buy-in, that little extra hook. They need something to hang it on, and they've always been really good about that. Yeah,
absolutely. So, man, he comes back to town. Now, we should talk about some of the other characters in this movie, because you meet the character Zero, is the name of the assassin, played by Mark Dacascos, who I thought was really good in this. He's so funny. And also just great with all the fights and everything. But it's him and his lackeys, who, I should say, one of them, I was right, it is the guy from the Raid. It's Yayan Ruhian, is an Indonesian martial artist who is in both the Raid 1 and 2. He plays different characters, because in the Raid 1, his character Mad Dog dies. He was also the choreographer of those movies. So he's not just an actor, he sets up the action. And I love that they full on get, because if he was in a Star Wars movie, he'd have nothing to do. We know that because of Donnie Yen.
Yeah.
But in this, he clearly played a big part in that scene. The fight scene he has with John Wick is so good, and I love that. I love seeing that guy show up. They really need to get Iko Uwais in the next one, the star of the Raid. But yes, so I love seeing that guy. But anyway, so you've got Zero and his crew, and they're going around causing shit, and then they're there for John when he gets back, and you have the scene in the train station, and then John Wick goes out, times it just right so you can jump on the guy and get the fucking motorcycle. And then that motorcycle chase across the bridge, it's pretty short, but it's an amazing little scene where it's John, and then there's 3 motorcycles on either side. They all pull out a sword. And then this is the long take that blew me away hardest, is everything on the motorcycle. Did you know? I don't know how they did that. I just have zero idea how they pulled that off.
Yeah, because it was a part of me was are they just on a green screen? How the fuck did they? It's no, they're straight up on a bridge. They're actually all driving motorcycles, and it's fuck yeah. Again, one of the things that's fun about watching these kinds of movies is just marveling at the spectacle of the stunt work and the practical nature of what they are physically doing on camera. These movies do not rely on a bunch of digital tricks to like obviously like all the stuff is enhanced a little bit digitally with like blood splatter and that kind of stuff, but the core of the stunt work of what they're doing is all like these are just people like fucking driving motorcycles down, like crashing, like going like 80 miles per hour down a fucking bridge.
It's so good. I mean, I assume the major CGI component of these movies is just painting things out.
Yeah,
like
and
wires
and
muzzle
flashes and stuff like that are all enhanced. Yeah, it's all that kind of stuff.
Yes, so it's but you get that. They get to the Continental, and then I think the last act of this movie, I was not prepared for it. One, because again, they do not hint at it in the trailers, but just you get Winston, you get the Lance Reddick character. What's his name? Charon. They don't say his name much, but he's the concierge.
Yeah, you
get him, Winston, and John Wick in the hotel together. You have the adjudicator character who I liked. Asia Kate Dillon, and Winston says, "I do not think I will be retiring. John, will you be killing me?" He says, "I don't think so, Winston." And then the adjudicator's like, "Okay," and it gets deconsecrated. Yeah. I love all the verbiage about the stuff in this world.
Yeah, it's all very Catholic for some reason.
Excommunicado, deconsecrated, the fucking cross. It is actually, it's very Catholic now that I think about it. But it gets deconsecrated, and then it's just, it's Parabellum, prepare for war. And just, good God, everything that follows. Another great gun fu sequence.
Yeah, and again, it's a thing that's so good. They're so good about this stuff of like never kind of trying to do the same action scene twice. So it's a big gunfight again, but this time, all the enemies just have this ridiculous body armor on that no normal guns can pierce, and so all the other like concierges of the Continental are all just like basically massacred except for Lance Reddick. And then John Wick is just like very methodically having to go through, and he's basically just like punching them with bullets because the gun, like the pistol is not penetrating the armor, so he's just trying to knock them down and then just get on them and just like shoot through like under the like rips off their helmet and shoot them in the face, or like shoot in the neck, like sort of joint where the armor joint is, and it's so ridiculous, but it's fucking awesome. Like it's a kind of action scene I've never quite seen before. These bullets are not being used to kill you. These bullets are just being used to sort of like lock you in place and knock you down, so I can deliver a finishing blow.
I just also love the showmanship of this scene, where there's the deconsecration, that main area where, again, with all the glass and the colors, which is basically like there's that one shot in Skyfall, the James Bond movie, where they fight in front of the color on the glass, and they decided, let's do a whole third act of a movie with that, and it's so good. But then, like, they turn off all the lights in the Continental. They come back on as these, like, green emergency lights. There's smoke everywhere. It's these big, beautiful widescreen compositions. And then Winston is playing a vinyl of, like, Mozart or something. And so there's this classical music underplaying everything. It's just the tone and it really feels like a great... I know this isn't the end of the John Wick franchise, but it feels like such a culmination of all the action up to this point is now they're on the Continental fighting for that ground.
Yeah.
It's so cool. And then, of course, John Wick and Lance Reddick come back, and it's like they have to find a better way to get through the armor.
I need more firepower.
So they get these giant fucking shotguns. And then we get probably the grisliest stuff in this whole movie is everything with the shotguns.
Yeah, people just getting blown to pieces. And it's one thing that I always appreciate the commitment in the John Wick movies to having like reloading being a mechanic of the fight scenes. Because if there's one thing that annoys me in a lot of Western action movies, it's that the over-reliance on guns, and then guns just having infinite bullets that just go forever. And instead the John Wick movies say, like, no, like, let's use the reloading as a thing that we can incorporate into our choreography to make it more interesting. And then especially once you have a shotgun, that each shell has to be loaded individually, like, that goes up again, and just, like, he has this big fuck-off belt with all these shotgun shells that he has to keep on putting more shells in. It's great.
It's so good. They've done it in each movie. So in the first movie, there's the scene in the Red Circle Club where he's fighting all the guys. He's got one guy left, and he fights like, oh, it doesn't work. So he reloads, and just the guy's like waiting, and just John Wick does it before he can escape and shoots him. That's great. In John Wick 2, I think you get the best one ever, where he has the guy pinned up
against the wall and loads the shotgun shell while the guy's pinned and then shoots it. Oh my god.
That one's great. In this one, you have a couple. You have all the stuff you were just talking about. And then there's one where I think it's in Casablanca where they have the big shootout with the dogs, is where he gets on the ground with two other guys. They all are out of ammo and they're all reloading, and John Wick gets there first and then just goes bam, bam, shoots them both. Yes, the reloading is mwah. It's so good.
It's like I feel like, I don't know if this is true and this is actually what it inspired it, but it feels like the greatest contribution that video games had to making John Wick movies, because there's something so third-person shooter about having to do, like, take into account all the reloading shit that most movies before this just didn't really think about that much.
Abso-fucking-lutely, yes. So, okay, you get all of that. They've killed all of the people from the high table, and now it's just Zero and his men. And we don't really know where Lance Reddick and Winston are. They're doing their own thing.
Yeah, they're like in the vault or something.
Yes, they're in the vault, and John Wick is in the glass palace. I guess.
John Wick goes to like Hall of Mirrors, Game of Death. Like basically, it's just like ascending this tower, beating the shit out of these ninjas.
I mean, it's the raid. It's like you get up one level and you have to fight these guys another level, and it's three big fights.
Except for on the first level, John Wick gets thrown through about 15 fucking mirrors.
This is what I want to talk about. It's I counted, and I think it's 6 total that he gets knocked into. Maybe more than it might be 8. But like, yes, that one is so Jackie Chan because it's he gets knocked into one and gets up, and they kick him into another, and then he gets up and it's all one take. Yeah. They didn't like I assume that's Keanu Reeves, but it could have been his stunt guy because that seems pretty dangerous. But whatever it is, and I should say, I like that there are several shots in this movie where you can just full on see it's not Keanu Reeves. You can look at the face and like, that's not him. And I like that. I think it's great when they don't feel the need to just totally disguise the stunt guy, because they're doing hard work too. Yeah. Keanu would be the first guy to tell you that. You see it in the motorcycle chase in a couple of shots where it's like someone with like kind of a painted on beard. It's like, that's not Keanu, but that's fine. The suit is recognizable enough. Yeah. But yes, just getting knocked into the glass 6 or 7 times. I loved, because they do 1 or 2 and I'm like, this is great. And like 3, I'm like, how long are they going to keep this going? And it's so good. Yeah, like you said, it's probably the most Jackie Chan sequence of all of it. Yes. It's just like putting it like 2 to 3 times past where any normal movie would have stopped doing that. Because it's also the Jackie Chan thing of like the rubberiness of it, of getting knocked down and jumping right back up, getting knocked right back down, getting right back up. And it is like, it's the kind of thing that Jackie Chan is so known for in his movies. It's just that he's like fucking Bugs Bunny as a person. Oh, man. And then, so we have 3 levels of the fight. John Wick on the 2 random guys who he finishes off with. The guy is moving his sword, and John Wick takes the other guy and moves him in front so the friend slits his own throat. That one's great. And then you get the fight with the 2 Indonesian guys, Yayan Ruhihan and the other guy, who are named Shinobi number 1 and 2 in the credits, which I love. But yes, so Zero's pupils, and this is where there's this whole thread through the end of Zero and all his men love John Wick and are so excited to fight him, like he's a celebrity. Yeah, this like they're all just big fans of John Wick and of his work, and so they're just like stoked to have a really dope fight with John Wick, and I like that dynamic. I like that they're just like no man, like come on, like let's do this, like let's have a fun fight, and then they keep on kind of knocking down John, and then he gets up that one time and takes off his belt. It's like, okay, now it's about to get real. Because this is what happens: is he's knocked down, and they're talking about it. Like we finally get to what it's like he's a little disappointing so far. It's like he's tired. This is still John Wick. And then they help him up, and John's a little surprised, but they help, and they all kind of get in their circle. They get ready. John like puts his hands up, gets ready to fight. They go for another round. John gets knocked down. And they're about to go in, and John like puts his hands up like, wait, I have something for you. He gets up, takes the belt off. He's like, now we're gonna have a fight. And then this is probably the most impressive hand-to-hand fight in the movie. I think is the thing with the belt and the 2 Indonesian guys. Like it's the best hand-to-hand sequence in any of these movies so far. It's like that, like that's just like raid level of like interesting martial arts choreography going on. It's so fucking good. But then the fight with Zero after that is also great, because now they just full on have swords. Yep. And they're just doing a sword fight, and it's all the stuff where they're like the sword against the mirrors and the glass and everything. Oh man, it really, because this is the kind of challenge that you have when you're going to invoke something like The Raid or Police Story, and this movie very directly invokes those. It's using actors, it's smashing tons of glass. Yeah. Like, you can't avoid those comparisons. You have to be able to, like, put your money where your mouth is, and they can fucking do it, where you have, like, I think the middle fight is our favorite here, but it's not like the Zero fight disappoints. It's just swords are a little less interesting than using a fucking belt. Yeah. So, like, the whole thing is so well done, and just this gauntlet that they put John Wick through at the end there, it's like something you would see I would never expect to see that in English without subtitles, you know? Exactly, yeah. It's you constantly have to stop yourself and be like, this is a fucking Hollywood movie. Like, this is an American movie. They just don't do action this way normally, and it's so exciting to see it. And then that scene has such a just fucking great ending where, like, Zero gets stabbed. He's like
That was a great fight, huh?
Yes. Hey, John, that was great, wasn't it, John? And John says, yeah. And then he says, all right, I'll catch up to you. And
No,
you won't. I like that, like, John Wick's not a mean guy, but he's not going to give these guys false hope.
No,
I'm better than you. But, oh man, it's fantastic. And then the end of the movie. Let's back up, though, before we talk about the ending.
Yeah.
Because there's all this plot stuff where you have the adjudicator coming around, basically answering for what happened in the previous movie. And the adjudicator is like the agent of the High Table, which is the big criminal organization here. And so she is mad at Winston because Winston gave John the hour. She's mad at the Bowery King, Lawrence Fishburne, because he gave him the 7 bullets. And then Angelica Houston gets her hands cut and everything. Let's talk about all these characters. We love Ian McShane as Winston.
Yeah, so, and I like that each movie they've ramped up his role a little bit more each time, to where, like, now he feels like this, like, vital part of the John Wick franchise in a way that, like, watching the first movie, I don't think you would necessarily assume, like, oh yeah, when they do more of these, like, Ian McShane's going to become this, like, really important character.
Yeah.
But now, especially in this one, like, he's got a lot of really strong material, and any time he just says anything, it's like, this is perfect. This is perfect. Like, it's so great that they just picked him, and it is, like, I think the moment where John Wick went from being like, oh, this is like these are like really good action movies, to like, this is fucking John Wick, is when they decided to have Ian McShane say excommunicado. And like, that's when it became John Wick, is like, he's the one that actually pushed it over the edge.
Lance Reddick, too, as Charon. I love Lance Reddick to begin with. He's good in everything. But, like, the accent he's doing, the just specific way he is so polite, like, that they turn him into, like, a badass in this movie, and it feels so consistent with his character, the way it all works. He's great. But then I got to talk about, oh boy, Lawrence Fishburne. Mm-hmm. Oh, my God. He is having so much fun in these movies, it should be illegal. And my favorite scene in this movie that does not involve killing people is when it's not the one where he takes the 7 cuts, but before that, when the adjudicator shows up and he talks about being the king, he's like, this is my domain, I am the king, and like that whole speech, I think it's one of Lawrence Fishburne's best moments on film, and that's saying something. He is such a fucking delight in this. And when he's about to die, we think he's going to die, but with the 7 cuts, and he says, Don't look at this, my pretty, to the pigeon, and he throws him and says, long live the king, and that whole thing. It's, oh my God, it's so good.
But then he has, like, his best scene to me is the scene at the very end.
Oh, of course, yes. We'll get to that.
Really pissed off.
Yeah. But so the end of this movie is the adjudicator. What do you think of the adjudicator?
I liked it. It's another, like, good character that, like, expand. I like whenever they manage to expand out this weird mythology without ever being too specific to, like, kind of spoil anything. But having this badass person just sort of walk in and be like you are all going to pay for what happened in John Wick 2 and the adjudicator basically feeling untouchable. Very cool.
Very cool. It really is amazing. They've done 3 of these. They've added a significant number of actors in each movie. No one has ever felt out of place. Everyone has worked. Everyone is good. Like, the adjudicator is not the flashiest role in this universe, but, like, yes, of course the agent of the High Table is like that. Like, everyone does their part so well. These movies really are just these finely honed clockwork devices where, like, if anything was out of place, the mythology would just fall apart. But they've gotten the perfect people for everything.
Yeah, and everybody plays it seriously to the perfect extent. Like, everyone, like, knows, like, no, like, this is serious business. We are a world of assassins, and it's been this way for 1,000 years, and we have our fucking coins and our markers, and we deconsecrate continental hotels, like, all that stuff. It's all played so perfectly straight.
And that's that's good direction. That's Chad Stileski. I think it's easy to praise him for the action stuff because he's a former stunt guy and it's very good. But, like, you don't get performances this consistent and pitched at just the right angle if the director does not know exactly what they want and how to communicate it. And that, to me, is like the secret sauce of him as a director. Mm-hmm. Is like, there's plenty of people who are good at putting an action sequence together, but to pair it with such a imaginative universe and such a specific performance style that kind of all comes from the top down with Keanu, and like just keep it all so visually inventive and everything. It really is a feat, you know? But yeah, so the last scene where they're on the roof of the Continental and John Wick gets fucked over. Here's my question, because I'm not sure how to read it either time I saw it. Is Winston just straight up betraying John Wick at the end? Or are he and John in it to some degree? Does John know he's going to have to brace himself for this awful fall that we see in full, just one long shot?
Yeah, like, I think the movie's very good at framing it. You can kind of read what you want to read into it. Like, I definitely don't think that Winston is just straight up betraying John Wick, but the thing I'm not sure of is how much does John know of what Winston is trying to do here.
Because where Winston shoots him on the sides of the jacket where he has flak jacket. So he doesn't shoot to kill, he shoots to move him off the roof. So the question is, does John know does he have some kind of skill to fall long distances? And does Winston know John has that skill? And I'm not mad that they don't answer it. This is like a setup for Chapter 4.
Yeah, I'm really excited to see what they do with it. I think it's an interesting ending of not quite knowing where it's going to go. And then it gets to lead to this fucking just incredible final scene where like once this final scene played, it was they need to make a John Wick 4 because I desperately want more Keanu and Lawrence Fishburne together, because they don't really, this is their only scene together in this movie.
They had more in part 2, but not this.
And like I like the idea of we're setting up this Lawrence Fishburne character to have like a bigger role in a fourth one where he's there and he's all cut up. He's like, I'm really pissed off. How about you, John Wick? Are you pissed off? And Keanu Reeves looking up. Yeah.
It's such a great cut to black. Just like Keanu does that last just perfect. And yes, Lawrence Fishburne being the ham to end all hams in that scene with he's scarred up, he's got stitches everywhere. Oh man, he's like moving with like that big fucking cane, and they're down in this like abandoned subway tunnel. Oh, I love it. I mean, anytime you get Keanu Reeves and Lawrence Fishburne in a room together, I will be happy.
Yeah.
Because I just like those two being on screen together, but it sets up such a great Chapter 4. And now I feel like, Sean, we have to do the inevitable game of Chapter 4 has to be he takes on the high table, right?
Yes.
Yeah. And it has to be the people of the high table are all famous action stars or like people in martial arts stars specifically.
Yes,
and it has to be a series of boss fights.
Put Donnie Yen in one of these. Donnie Yen has got to be in John Wick Chapter 4, right?
I have my list. Donnie Yen has to be one of the high table guys. Iko Uwais from The Raid has to be in there. Because he could play because Iko Uwais has this thing where he looks like he could just be like a businessman or something, but then he could throw the fuck down.
Yeah.
So do that. I think they have to try to get Jackie Chan.
I would love for them to get Jackie in.
I don't know if they can, but they have to try. Get Jackie Chan. And then beyond that, I mean, there's so many others you could do, but because this is all leaning very much like East Asia stuff. I'm trying to think of if there's anyone else who does this kind of hand-to-hand stuff that they could get from other parts of the world. But like those are the big three I need. It's Donnie Yen. They need a woman, Zhang Ziyi, maybe from some of the Zhang Yimou martial arts movies. I'd love that. Jet Li doesn't really do stuff anymore, I guess.
No.
But yeah, like there's a lot of options. It just needs to be a series of boss fights with really good martial arts stars.
Yeah, and I definitely, because I hadn't even really thought about it, but fucking Donnie Yen being in a John Wick movie would be fucking beautiful. I mean,
Donnie Yen I think would be amenable to it. He's done Hollywood.
Yes, and
he's in the new Mulan movie, which makes me very excited.
So get some Donnie Yen up in this. That would be like there. You've got your fucking John Wick 4 made already. John Wick. On the Bowery King side, and then Donnie Yen is like, because John Wick cannot be the only like legendary incredible assassin. Like that was something I was thinking about while watching this movie was like they have never really introduced another character that's like this isn't another assassin that is on John Wick's level, because they always have to send we have some other like common in John Wick 2 that's like clearly this guy is like a really good one of these assassins, but nobody is anywhere near as good as John Wick. He's like the Baba Yaga, he's the dude. But there's got to be at least someone before him or a contemporary, someone else that is like, this is another John Wick. Like this is like the John Wick from this part of the world or something. I want them to introduce a character like that, and if Donnie Yen is playing that would be fucking beautiful.
Yes, there's a lot of ways you could pull that off. I also think the setup for Part 4 is good because it, at least to me, implies a story where John will be on the offensive again.
Yeah.
And in 2 and 3, he's very much reactive. Like, he's having to, like, people are chasing him. He sometimes is trying to get places, but sometimes he's just kind of fleeing and getting chased. But in John Wick 1, he was on the offensive. I feel like coming full circle back to John Wick 4, he's like, we're going to go take out the high table. Yeah. That's what I want. It's so exciting.
Yeah, so it was such a relief to, like, I mean, it was like almost immediately after me getting back from seeing the movie that they announced the news that they were making John Wick 4. It was just like a perfect thank you, because I didn't want to stress out about the idea that maybe they wouldn't make another one of these, because, you know, you never know when projects can get greenlit. But they greenlit it, and they gave, like, a specific date. So it's...
Yep, and why wouldn't you want to do more? If you're Keanu Reeves, if you're Chad Stahelski, this is the kind of stuff you like doing, like... You're never going to get a better chance than this. I mean, if you're Chad Stahelski, it's like you get to do 4 fucking movies in a row with Keanu Reeves, who has to be an action director's just dream movie star. Because he's got the, like, movie star looks and everything, but he can do the stuff, you know? Like, it's wild. It's so good. I also want to put praise on, the cinematographer of this one, he also did 2, is Dan Laustsen. These movies are so fucking beautiful.
Yeah.
And they're just so imaginative. And they, like... I've said it before, color is this thing that, like, Hollywood is almost fucking afraid of, and the John Wick movies are so ludicrously colorful.
Yeah.
I love all the neon and the bright, like, almost pastels. It's so good. And then the music, Tyler Bates and Joel J. Richard, they've done the scores for all 3. They've built such a unique sonic atmosphere for these movies. Like, I hear 5 seconds of John Wick music, and I know it's John Wick music.
Yeah.
And there's so few movies, especially franchises these days, that have an identifiable palette to the music, and, like, it adds so much to the movie when you have the right rhythm under this stuff. It's really important. Everyone involved does such great work. I love that this is, you know, so far it's a trilogy. It will soon have 4 parts, but that it's been basically the same people the whole time, you know, behind the camera, in front of the camera. It's awesome to me, and yeah, we're getting Chapter 4, Sean.
Yes, we are.
This is the franchise we need and the one we deserve.
Yeah, it's good in these trying times to be able to watch a movie where a dude just murders like 500 people and have fun with it.
I'm sure someone has done it for parts 1 and 2, but I can't wait for the John Wick body count video that's going to be on YouTube. Because I want to know the count. Yeah.
Because it's so much higher than these movies tend to have, because most of these movies don't have all the gun stuff also. They usually just are almost entirely focused on just the martial arts, and this combines all the gun stuff with it. So it's an absurd number of people John Wick has killed.
Yes. Man. Oh, also, the sound design in this movie.
Oh, God, yeah.
It's so good. I saw it in 2 different theaters, and it was great in both, but I did the first time see it in a Dolby Atmos theater, and every gunshot, every punch, you just felt it in your fucking bones. It was noticeably a step up, I thought, from chapters 1 and 2. Just like the impact of every crisp sound. There's so much meat and weight to it.
Yeah.
Like, that's part of why that book scene hits so hard, is like you feel that book going down that dude's throat. Yeah. And then John Wick does, of course, put the book back on its shelf.
Yes, I mean, that's the thing that makes the whole scene. Like, of course, he has to brutally murder this guy with this, like, ancient book and then put it back on the shelf. While it's still covered in blood. Man.
We don't deserve you, John Wick. This has been a good decade for action movies.
Yes, yeah. It's interesting because it's like we have all these different kinds of action movies where there's been tons of great Hong Kong action movies. We've got these now for Hong Kong style movies, but made in Hollywood. And then you just have the stuff like the modern Mission Impossibles and Mad Max Fury Road that are more that kind of conventional Hollywood sort of like chase scene, big like vehicle spectacle kind of action.
Yeah, what I think of as kind of like the stunt-driven stuff.
Yeah.
And this is more of the choreography. There's stunts, obviously, but just the choreography of it, yeah. It's cool that they can exist. I love that it's such an organic franchise and how it's grown and people like it. Because I remember being there for the first movie and like no one else really being in the theater. And then movie 3, there's, a Thursday night preview and it's packed and everyone's excited. Like, you don't get that a lot anymore. Usually either a franchise dies or it starts big. And John Wick has kind of grown organically. So I can't wait for John Wick Endgame at some point that outgrows his Avatar. No.
I mean, again, mathematically speaking, if we continue at this rate, eventually they will make infinite money.
Yes. Have you, by the way, I want to recommend something if people haven't seen it. Have you seen Keanu Reeves' movie he directed, Man of Tai Chi?
No.
Watch Man of Tai Chi. You'll like it. It is, Keanu Reeves directed this as a tribute, basically, to his trainer, Tiger Chen, who is in the John Wick movies here and there doing stunts and stuff.
Yeah.
But he's been the guy who's taught Keanu Reeves. He also was Uma Thurman's stunt double in Kill Bill. But he's the star of this movie, Man of Tai Chi, which is about this guy who decides to try a new martial arts based on Tai Chi, which is not a martial art.
Yeah.
And and so he goes through a tournament using Tai Chi, and Keanu Reeves is like this businessman who's like the head of the tournament. He's also acts in it. He's the bad guy, and at the end, Tiger Chen has to defeat him. It's not as good as the John Wick movies, but it is like, it's just a straight up martial arts movie done with Tai Chi, which is funny and interesting, and I like it. And I know it's one of the things that kind of kicked off the kind of John Wick renaissance, because it was Keanu Reeves getting back to like all of his stunt friends.
Yeah.
And then I think some of the germ of the idea for all this came from that. But if you haven't seen it, it was on Amazon Prime when I watched it, but that was years ago, so I don't know if it still is. But if you need another kick of just this kind of thing, it's good.
This, and then Ip Man 4 is coming out. They're making forth one of those where Ip Man in America, kicking ass. So,
and I don't know if you've seen, we're getting Zhang Yimou's new movie next week.
Yes, we are.
May 31st, Shadow. We're gonna have to drive to fucking Arapahoe Crossing, but
I might just wait for it to come out on Blu-ray.
Okay.
I'm not going to commit to seeing that in the theater.
I need to see it. Zhang Yimou has not had a wuxia film in like 15 years, and he's really good at it. Mm-hmm. And it'll make up for The Great Wall, which was
right. I totally forgot that movie happened.
Yes, so did everyone else, except the people who financed it. So, all right, I think that's it for this week. This was a long one. We'll be back next week. Next week we've got a new Godzilla movie.
Fucking Jesus Christ, that is next week. Man, movies are happening, Jonathan.
Yep.
They're making a lot, like, there was a time on this podcast where we would do, like, 2 movies a year.
Yeah.
Now I feel like we do, like, 10. It's ridiculous.
You looking forward to this Godzilla movie?
Yes, it's a fucking Godzilla movie.
It also, like for Hollywood, they're going full-ass Godzilla with it, it looks like.
The trailer for this movie also played in front of Detective Pikachu, and there's that shot of King Ghidorah, and
Mothra unfurling its wings.
Yep.
Oh, man. Yeah, no, I'm excited for it. We'll talk about that next week, I'm sure. We'll also preview E3 next week, because E3 is in 2 weeks. And,
how is this all happening at once? So much.
Now I've got to figure out what the fuck I title this episode, Sean.
Yeah, well, I'm just looking forward to John Wick 10, where John Wick fights Godzilla.